My name
Hey
is
there.
Martin Blanchard.
Welcome to Midnight
remember
Sleep
Rosie.
Crime. I'm here to
Ellen's
help you
ears
relax
perked
tonight.
up.
I know many
You were
of you
neighbors
use
with the
this
Harlans?
video to fall asleep.
Yeah, he
So,
said.
before you get
And I
cozy,
remember
don't
things.
forget to like the video
Screaming
and
mostly.
subscribe to the channel.
And once she
also,
threw a note over
let
the
me know
fence.
where you're watching
I
from
was
and
just a
what time it
teenager.
is there.
I didn't
I'd
do
love
anything.
to hear from you. Story
What
1.
did the note say?
Every town has a place
There was
people
silence
whisper
for a
about
moment.
but never visit.
She wrote,
For the town of Ashgrove,
I'm not allowed
that
to
place
leave,
was the
but I'm still
Sunset View
here.
Motel,
Please
a
tell
forgotten
someone.
roadside inn where
My
guests
name is
checked
Rosie.
in but didn't always check out.
a pattern
When construction
emerges.
workers unearthed a series
The
of
cold
shallow
case unit
graves
began a
behind the
full
property,
reinvestigation of
detectives
Rosie's
discovered that the
disappearance.
motel's history
While
wasn't just
combing
tragic,
through the original
it was
police
still
files,
alive.
Detective
The Sunset
Glass
View
found
Motel sat half a
inconsistencies.
mile off Highway 9,
Officers' notes
hidden
missing.
behind a cluster
Evidence
of dying
never
pine
processed.
trees and a faded
And one
billboard
name
that hadn't
stood
been
out.
updated since the early 1990s.
Detective Charles
The
Lenning,
sign
the
once
lead
glowed a
investigator
soft
at the time,
orange,
had
promising
signed
clean
off on
rooms,
Rosie's
hot
case within
coffee, and
48
cable
hours.
TV, but
An
now
unusually
only a
short
single
window
letter
for a
flickered.
child disappearance. He had since
Truckers
retired,
passed it without
now
slowing
living
down.
2 counties over.
Locals avoided it altogether.
Glass made contact.
The few who remembered the motel's
What do
better
you
days
remember about
spoke of it
Rosie
in
Harlan?
half-jokes
She
and
asked.
warnings, like something
away,
that had
Lenning
quietly
said
grown
flatly.
cursed over time.
No sign of abduction.
But that night, when
Parents
the
said
rain
she'd been
came
troubled.
down in endless
Case
sheets
was
and the
closed.
highway ahead
No
flooded
foul
with
play.
fog, the Callahan family
You didn't
had no
find it
choice.
odd that a
Their
9-year-old could
GPS had
disappear
gone
without a
dark miles
trace?
back. The fuel
followed
gauge
protocol.
hovered dangerously
If you're
close to
calling me
empty.
40 years
The
later,
youngest child,
then maybe your
Lucy,
department's got
was
time to
crying in the
waste.
back seat.
I don't.
So when the faded neon
Click.
vacancy sign appeared
Something
through the
wasn't
mist,
right.
flickering like a dying heartbeat,
dollhouse back
Tom
at the
Callahan
scene,
muttered,
forensic teams
finally,
began
and pulled
inventorying
the
the room.
SUV into the gravel
Beneath the
lot.
bed was a crawl
The tires
space
crunched
sealed
to a
with
stop
plywood.
in front of the office.
Inside, they discovered
Stay
a
in the
small
car,
metal lockbox.
Tom said to his wife,
Inside
Melissa.
the lockbox
I'll
was
check
a set
us
of
in.
photographs.
She nodded,
Polaroids,
glancing
curled at
around
the edges,
nervously.
showing a
The
young
rain
girl
made
with red hair
everything
in
look
various
distorted.
poses.
The cracked
Some
parking
showed
lot,
her
the
smiling,
row of doors with
others
peeling
crying.
paint, the
But
half-lit
the final
sign
photo
swaying in the
chilled the
wind.
entire
The
team.
place didn't feel empty.
It was of Rosie
It felt
standing
watched.
beside the dollhouse.
Tom jogged through the
holding
rain
up
to
a
the
sign
small
written
office.
in crayon.
Inside,
This
a
is
bell
not my
jingled
home.
when he opened the door. The
On the
lobby
roof of the
smelled of
dollhouse,
mildew and lemon
forensic
cleaner.
techs noticed something
Faded
strange.
wallpaper peeled at the
Carved
corners,
into the shingles
and a
with a
fan
blade were
oscillated
7 sets of
noisily on the
initials.
counter.
Only
Behind the
one
desk
matched
sat an
someone they
elderly
knew.
man in a brown
R.H.,
cardigan, his
Rosie
eyes
Harlan.
half hidden behind
The
thick
rest?
bifocals.
Unknown.
Evening, the man said,
room had become
voice
a
gravelly
forensic
but
gold mine.
polite. You're
And
lucky
a
you
nightmare.
caught me. Not many
Detective
travelers
Ellen
this
Glass
time of year.
stared at the dollhouse on the
Yeah,
evidence table.
Tom said, shaking
Each
rain from his
carved set of
jacket.
initials was
We just need a
catalogued and
room for the
magnified.
night. Got caught
7
in the
sets.
storm.
One
The old
belonged to
man
Rosie
slid a
Harlan.
large guest book
The
toward
others?
him. You can take
No
room
mention
7.
of them in any Harlan
Best
family
bed we got.
records.
50
Glass
cash
felt
or
a pit form in
75
her
with a
stomach.
card. Tom
Assume the
hesitated.
worst, she
Cards
muttered.
fine.
7
The
sets
man
of
frowned
initials.
slightly, as
7
though
kids.
disappointed. Suit
Desai
yourself.
nodded grimly.
He handed over
If
a
we're
metal
lucky,
key attached to a
initials
cracked
alone
orange
won't be all
tag.
we have for long.
Room 7. Checkouts
Digging
at
the
10.
records,
Don't
Detective
mind the
Glass
power
requested
flickers.
all missing
Storm
persons
messes with the
reports for
lines
children
sometimes.
under 12 between
Tom nodded, turning to
1975
leave,
and
but something on the
1985
wall behind the
in
desk
Kalamazoo
caught his
County
eye.
and
A
surrounding
photo
areas.
collage.
The list
Dozens
was
of
longer
faded
than she
Polaroids
expected,
pinned under yellow
and many
tape.
had gone cold
Your
with
family?
only vague leads.
Tom asked. The
She
man
assigned her
glanced
team
up,
to begin
following his
cross-referencing
gaze.
the initials with
For a
these
second,
files.
he didn't answer. Then
The first
slowly
match
he
came
said,
quick.
"Yes, I like
TL,
remembering
Timothy
faces."
Lasker, age 10,
Tom forced a polite
disappeared while
smile,
walking to school
thanked
in
him, and
1979.
stepped back into the storm.
AW,
Room 7 was
Angela
halfway
White,
down the
8,
row.
vanished
The
from a
lights
grocery store
outside buzzed
parking
and
lot in
sputtered,
1980.
and one by one, the
MC,
bulbs flickered
Maya
out
Carter,
as they passed
6,
beneath them.
last seen
Not
leaving
exactly
a church
the Ritz,
daycare in
Melissa
1982.
murmured. Tom forced
Each
a laugh.
case had one bizarre
Just for
similarity.
tonight. Inside,
Initial interviews
the
with the
room
Harlan
smelled
family were
faintly of
conducted,
damp carpet
but
and
not
old
followed up.
cigarettes. There was a
The
single
Harlans
queen
always
bed,
seemed to
a
have
dresser,
just
a small
seen the
TV,
child nearby,
and a phone with a cracked
claimed
receiver.
they knew nothing.
Lucy crawled
None
onto the
were
bed with her
arrested.
stuffed rabbit,
None were
while her
searched.
older brother, Ben,
But the Harlans
peeked
were in
through
the
the
background
curtains.
of everything.
"Dad," Ben said,
The family.
"I think someone's in the next room."
The Harlan family
Tom looked.
patriarch,
The
Walter
curtains
Harlan,
shifted in room
had died
8,
in
just
1992.
barely, as if someone
The
had
same
been
year the
watching
house
and
was
pulled
first
away at
abandoned.
the last second.
He was
"It's
a church
fine,"
deacon,
Tom
local
said,
handyman,
drawing the curtain
and often
shut.
hosted hosted Sunday
We're all
dinners for
tired.
neighbors.
Let's just get some
His
sleep.
wife, Anne Harlan,
Melissa
had died in
unpacked their
hospice
overnight
just 3
bag.
years earlier.
There's no Wi-Fi signal.
Photos from their
Figures.
home showed the couple with
Try
their
your
children.
phone hotspot,
Gregory,
Tom suggested.
Sarah, Michael,
I'll see
and
if there's
Rosie.
any vending machines.
Rosie had been the
He left
youngest
the room,
by nearly 10
walking
years.
under the buzzing lights
Interviews
toward
with
the office
surviving
again.
community members
The rain
painted
had
a
calmed
curious
to a
portrait.
drizzle, but the fog
The
had
Harlans were
thickened.
respected,
The neon
helpful,
sign hummed above
and
him,
devout.
casting an eerie
But those
orange
who knew
glow
them well
across the parking lot.
or dared to
That's when
question
he
them
saw it. A
spoke of
figure
secrets,
standing at the far
strictness,
end of the lot
and an
near the
unsettling
dumpsters.
devotion to privacy.
Motionless. Facing him.
They always locked
Tom
their basement.
squinted.
One
The fog
former
made
neighbor
it
said.
impossible to tell details.
Always.
But the person was
Not just a
tall,
latch.
maybe a man
Heavy chains.
wearing what looked like a long
Like they were
raincoat.
hiding something alive.
He waved. Hey, everything
pattern.
okay? No
Hidden
response.
in plain sight glass
Tom took a
widened the
hesitant
search.
step forward.
She
The
pulled
figure
property
turned
records for
not
the Harlan
away
family's
but toward
business
him
dealings
and began walking
discovered Walter had
slow and
purchased 3
deliberate
adjacent
until it
parcels of
disappeared
land
into the
in the
fog.
early 1980s.
Tom stood there for a moment, pulse
2 had been
quickening,
sold,
before
but
shaking
one
his
remained
head.
untouched
Probably
and
just
wooded.
another guest,
10
he
acres
muttered.
of thick
But when he
Michigan
got back
forest.
to room 7, the
She
door
obtained
was
a warrant
slightly ajar.
and headed out
He
with
froze.
cadaver dogs.
Melissa, he called
On the
softly.
3rd day,
No
they
answer.
found the first
He
shallow
pushed it
grave.
open. The
Then a
light was
second.
off. The
Then a
air
third.
inside felt wrong.
Each
colder,
grave contained
heavier.
the remains of
His
a child.
family was asleep, but the
Dental
phone on the
records
nightstand
confirmed
was off
what
the
Glass
hook,
already
its
feared.
faint dial tone filling
Timothy
the room.
Lasker,
Tom
Angela
hung it up
White,
and locked the
Maya
door.
Carter had all been
He lay
buried
down
there.
next to Melissa,
Their
staring at the
disappearances,
ceiling as
once
the
scattered
storm
and
rolled
forgotten,
on. At
were now fully
2:37
connected,
a.m., the phone
bound
rang.
together by the
The
Harlan
shrill
name.
sound sliced through the
The 5th
silence.
victim.
Melissa sat up,
Meanwhile,
heart pounding.
forensic techs
Who would
made
call
a
this
discovery
late?
inside
She
the
whispered.
secret room's toy
Tom
chest.
reached for the receiver.
Hidden beneath
Hello.
the false bottom
The pause.
was a strip of
Then
35 millimeter
faintly, Room
film.
7. It was
After
a woman's
careful
voice.
development,
Calm,
it revealed 8
almost
still
melodic.
photographs.
Tom frowned.
Each one
Who is
showed
this?
a child sitting in the
Another
same
pause.
chair in the same room.
Don't open the door.
One girl,
The line
seated
went
in
dead.
the 4th photo,
The next morning,
wore a shirt
sunlight
with Camp
filtered
Elmwood,
weakly through the curtains.
1978,
The rain
printed
had
across
stopped.
it.
Melissa was
Glass
up
found
first,
the camp
making
still operating
instant coffee
and
with the
contacted their
motel's small
historical
kettle.
office.
Tom recounted the
That
call.
girl was Emily
I thought
Stanton,
maybe it was the front desk.
reported missing in
Some
1978
kind of warning, I
during
don't
a
know.
family trip.
She
Her
frowned.
case had gone cold.
About what?
Ruled as
I don't
likely
know.
abduction by
The
a
guy in the
stranger
lot?
off the highway.
The storm.
No suspects.
Lucy rubbed her eyes
leads.
and climbed into Melissa's
now.
lap. Mommy, the
Emily's
phone talked
initials
to me
matched
too.
one on the dollhouse.
Melissa froze.
ES.
What do you mean,
the body
honey?
count was now 5.
It said my name,
The
Lucy
whistleblower.
whispered. Last
Then,
night, before I
miracle.
went to sleep. Tom
Detective
exchanged a
Glass
look with his
received
wife.
an anonymous
You
envelope
sure?
in her mailbox at the
Lucy
station.
nodded solemnly.
No return
It
address.
said, Lucy,
Inside
stay
was
quiet.
a letter and a photo.
A chill
A
passed through the
Polaroid
room.
of the dollhouse,
At the
taken
front
clearly
office,
in the 1980s.
the old man from last night was gone.
Pinned to it was
In
a
his
note,
place was a younger
handwritten
woman with
in
short
block
dark
letters.
hair and a forced smile.
They never let her out.
Morning, Tom said,
She
setting
begged.
the key on the counter.
I couldn't stop
Is
it.
there any way to
But I
contact
made
the
her
old
a
man
room
who
so
checked
she
us
could
in?
feel safe.
She blinked.
There
Old
are more.
man? Yeah,
Look under
he
the
was here
floor.
last night.
The truth
Said his
is
name
deeper
was.
than you know.
Tom trailed off, realizing
Glass's
he hadn't
hands
caught
trembled.
it. He
There was a
checked us
faint
into
signature
room
at the
7.
bottom.
The woman's expression stiffened.
A visit to
Sir,
Gregory Harlan.
I think you're mistaken. We haven't
Gregory
had
Harlan,
anyone
the
working
eldest
nights here
son,
for a few weeks.
was now 63.
The owner passed
and
away
lived
in
in
June.
a remote cabin 2 hours
Tom
north
felt
of
his
Detroit.
stomach twist.
Glass
Passed
and
away.
2 officers arrived
She
unannounced.
nodded. Heart attack.
He answered the door
right
with a
here in
tired
the office.
expression.
He'd been
Long
running
gray
this
hair
place for
pulled back,
decades.
eyes
Wouldn't
dull.
let anyone else handle check-ins.
You're here about Rosie.
Tom glanced behind
said
her
quietly,
at the wall of photos.
almost like it was a relief.
They were gone. Only
Glass
the
raised
yellowed
an eyebrow.
outlines of where they'd been taped
We're here
remained.
about all of them.
Where are the pictures?
Gregory
he asked.
let out a long
The
sigh
woman
and
turned,
stepped aside.
confused. Pictures?
Then I guess it's time.
There was a collage. Right
Inside,
there.
his walls were
She shook
covered
her
in
head.
childlike drawings.
No, sir.
Rosie's
that wall's
face
been empty
appeared
since I
repeatedly,
started here.
drawn over and over
Tom's
in
pulse
various
quickened.
stages of life.
He thanked her and
A
stepped
9-year-old,
outside.
a teenager,
The fog had returned,
even a woman
curling
in her
low
20s.
across the parking lot. Melissa
never left
waved
that
from the
room.
car.
He
All
said
good.
softly.
He forced a
She
smile.
cried every night.
Yeah. Let's
She
just
sang
get home.
lullabies to herself.
But as he opened the driver's
made her the
door,
dollhouse.
he noticed something strange.
brought her food
a
when they
small
forgot.
tag wedged under the
But I
windshield
wasn't strong
wiper.
enough to stop
He
it.
pulled it out. It was another
Glass
key.
pressed.
Room
Who
7.
kept her there?
Except this tag
stared
wasn't
out the
cracked
window.
or faded like the one
All
from
of
last
them.
night. It
But
was
mostly
new.
Sarah.
The brass
said
key
Rosie was too
gleamed in the
wild.
pale morning light.
Said she had to
And
be
etched
tamed.
along the edge of the metal,
One
barely
final clue.
visible, were words that
Gregory
made his
said
blood
something
run
else
cold.
before being taken
Check
into
back
custody.
soon. That
She
night,
wasn't the
police
last.
found the Callahan
There was
family's
another,
SUV abandoned
boy.
15 miles north
He didn't
of the
live in the
motel,
room.
parked neatly
He
along the
died
shoulder.
before they built it.
The keys were in
The
the
floor.
ignition. The
The
headlights
one
still
Rosie
on.
slept on.
Inside,
That's where they
officers
put him.
discovered a single motel key
Detectives
resting on the
returned to the
driver's seat.
farmhouse and removed
Room
the planks
7.
beneath the bed.
The next morning,
Ground
when
penetrating
investigators
radar lit
arrived
up
at the
almost
Sunset
instantly.
View Motel,
They
the
began to
office
dig.
was locked.
And what
The
they
woman
found sound
had
would
spoken
change
to
the
Tom was
direction of
gone,
the entire
her
case.
belongings still behind the
The
counter.
ground beneath the bed
The guest book
had always
showed
felt
no
wrong.
record of the Callahan family
Luis
ever
Romero had
checking
mentioned
in.
it early
And
on.
taped to the empty
The
wall behind
floorboards
the
under
desk,
Rosie's bed
where the
were
photos
thicker than
once
the rest,
hung, was a
layered
fresh
differently.
Polaroid. A man,
Now,
a
with
woman,
Gregory
a
Harlan's
boy, and a
confession
little girl,
and a confirmed
all
body count
smiling,
rising,
frozen
was time
forever
to
in
dig.
faded light. Underneath
The
it,
forensic
written in black
excavation team
marker.
began carefully
2
removing
days after the
soil.
Callahan family's
Within hours,
disappearance,
they uncovered
Detective
a wooden
Serena
box.
Voss stood on the
Not
cracked
a coffin,
asphalt of the
but a
Sunset View
carpenter's
Motel,
chest.
watching as a tow truck
Inside
hauled away
lay
the
skeletal
family's
remains
abandoned
of a young
SUV.
boy,
The
no
air
older than
smelled
7.
of wet pine and gasoline.
There were no clothes,
A thin
no
mist
toys,
crawled across the
no
lot
name.
like smoke from an
Only a
invisible
small
fire.
silver
The
pendant
motel
clutched
looked
in his
even
tiny
worse in
hand.
daylight. Half
The
the
letter
doors were
D
boarded shut,
etched into
the
it.
curtains were mildewed and
Who was
yellow,
D?
and the office window was
Detective
covered in
Glass
grime
sent the
thick
pendant
enough
to
to
be
blur the
analyzed while
interior.
forensics worked on
Voss pushed her
estimating
hands
time of
into her
death.
coat pockets and turned to the
The
county
chest
deputy
itself
beside
dated
her.
back to the 1950s.
Let me get this straight. No
Older than
guest
Rosie,
record, no
older
security
than even the
cameras,
Harlan
no
children.
witnesses?
The boy
Deputy
was
Carter
different from
shook
the
his
other
head.
victims.
Nothing.
His remains
Owners
showed signs
listed
of
as
malnutrition
Daniel Grover.
and prolonged
Died
physical
4
abuse.
months ago. Heart
Several
failure.
bones had been broken
The
and
property
healed
was supposed
improperly,
to be closed,
and there
but
was evidence of
he
blunt force
gestured
trauma
toward the
to the
flickering
skull.
vacancy sign. Guess
Someone
someone
had not
didn't
just
get the
hidden
memo.
this child.
Voss eyed
had
the sign,
erased him.
its faint buzz breaking
And
the
yet,
silence every
Gregory
few
Harlan
seconds.
had known about it.
And the woman who supposedly checked them
Glass
out?
returned to the
Gone.
jail for another
We've got
interview.
no record of her working
Gregory's
here either.
truth.
Voss walked toward
Gregory
room
sat
7.
with a numb
The
expression,
door was slightly
hands
open,
folded on
as
the
though
cold
inviting
steel
her
table.
in. She pushed
When
it
Glass
wider
showed
with
him
her
a photo
gloved
of the
hand.
pendant,
The smell
his
hit
lip quivered
first,
slightly.
stale air, mold,
His
and
name was
something
David,
faintly metallic.
he said quietly.
Inside, the room looked
He was our cousin.
untouched. The unmade
Sort of.
bed, half-drunk
He
coffee
came to
cups,
live with us in
the small
1971, I
TV
think.
frozen on static.
I was 9.
But the air felt off.
Rosie wasn't even
the
born
kind of
yet.
cold that had nothing to do
Why
with
was he there?
temperature.
Glass
Carter
asked.
lingered by the door.
Gregory
We've
paused.
swept it already.
No one
no
ever said.
signs of struggle.
One day he was
no
just
prints except
in
the
the attic.
family's.
Mom
Voss
said he was
crouched
special
beside the nightstand.
and couldn't go to
The
school.
old rotary phone sat
Dad
there,
said the state
its
didn't
receiver
need to
resting
know.
at an angle.
So he lived
She
with
lifted
us,
it and pressed it to
but
her
he
ear.
wasn't allowed to
The
speak
line
unless
was
spoken
dead.
to.
Did you check the phone records?
He looked down at
she
his
asked.
hands.
Nothing came
I think
in
my
or
parents
out.
were paid to keep
Line's been disconnected
hush
for
job.
years.
foster
Voss
system
frowned.
loophole or something.
Then how the hell did
But they
someone
never
call
filed
this room?
paperwork.
Outside,
He
the
wasn't on any
forensic team
records.
had started digging
Sarah
near the
used to
back
call
of the
him
property.
the ghost in the
A cadaver
walls.
dog had picked up a scent
What
close
happened
to
to
the
him?
tree line.
Glass
Voss
pressed.
approached the technician
Gregory
leading the
didn't
dig.
look up.
Anything.
Sarah
He
said
shook
he
his
saw
head.
something he wasn't
Nothing
supposed
solid
to.
yet.
Maybe
But the
something
soil's
Dad
been
did.
disturbed recently.
One day she
Someone
told me
was digging
David
back
ran
here,
away.
maybe within
But
the
I knew.
last week.
I heard the
She
hammer.
nodded, scanning
I heard
the
him
area.
scream.
Beyond the lot, the trees
State
pressed
records
close,
and a missing name
tall
glass
and dark.
requested state
The ground
foster
dipped
care
into a
and
shallow
orphanage
ravine
records
filled
from
with
the
trash
late
bags and
1960s
rusted cans.
to early 1970s.
And then she saw it, a small glint
Several
of metal
files were
half
missing.
buried in the mud.
One in
Hold
particular
up,
stood out.
she said,
A child
crouching to pick
identified
it up.
only as
It was a
infant
key,
DJ,
old-fashioned,
placed
brass,
into temporary
still
care
attached
in
to a tag.
1966.
She
after
wiped
his
away the
parents
dirt
died in
and
a
read
house
the
fire.
faded lettering.
No adoption
Room 7.
paperwork.
Voss's
No
heart
foster
sank.
family placement.
That makes 2.
The last
Carter
entry
frowned.
listed a caseworker.
2.
Howard
She reached
Ellison,
into her pocket
now
and
long
pulled
deceased.
out a clear evidence
DJ.
bag containing an
The initials
identical
carved
key,
into the
the one
dollhouse
recovered
roof.
from the Callahan vehicle.
Glass sat
They
back in her
both lead
chair,
to the same room,
realizing what
she
it
said.
meant.
But one was
The
found
dollhouse
15
wasn't
miles
just a
away,
memorial.
and the other was,
was a roll
buried
call.
here. Carter
And David,
scratched his
the
chin.
earliest victim,
You think someone
had been
planted
buried
it?
beneath it,
Maybe.
while
Or
others
maybe
were
someone
imprisoned
wanted us to
inside it.
find it. Later that
family web,
afternoon,
it became
Voss
clear.
met with the motel's property
Harlans
owner,
had operated
Evelyn
more
Hasker,
like a cult
a
than a
gray-haired
family.
woman in her 70s who
Walter
ran a
Harlan
real
ruled
estate
with an
business
iron
out of
fist,
town.
and
They
Anne
sat in the
backed
back
every
booth of a
decision.
diner off the highway.
Sarah,
Evelyn
the oldest
stirred her
daughter,
tea without
had become
drinking
the
it.
enforcer.
I haven't been out to
Cold,
that place in years,
calculating,
she
cruel.
said. Mr. Grover
Michael was
ran it
mostly
till he
absent
died.
from records,
Stubborn
having
old
died
man.
in a car
Said
accident
he'd
in
die in that
1991.
office before he let anyone
Gregory
sell it.
had been the only one to
Voss
show
leaned
remorse.
forward. Did he
With
live
David's
there alone?
discovery, the body
As far
count
as I
rose
know,
to 6.
he didn't have family.
But one set of
I think
initials
he
on the
used to have a
dollhouse
daughter,
still had no
but
match.
she, Evelyn stopped,
LB
her spoon
Glass
clinking
believed
against
that
the cup.
LB was someone
Oh,
recent,
Something happened.
someone closer
She
in
went
age
missing
to
when she
Rosie,
was young.
or even
Early
after.
2000s,
Someone
maybe?
they hadn't
I
uncovered
remember
yet.
the flyers.
She requested
Voss's
forensic
pen paused
scans
above
of the
her
entire
notebook.
house.
Missing from the
The
motel?
walls have secrets.
Evelyn nodded slowly.
While
Room
scanning
7.
the upstairs hallway,
Back at the
one
station,
tech noticed
Voss
something
spread the
odd
photos
behind
across
a
her
stretcher
desk.
wall
The
near what
Callahan
would have been the
family's
children's
last known
bedrooms.
image from a gas station
The wall,
camera, the
constructed in
motel room, the
1985
two identical
renovations,
keys.
had hollow
The
space,
evidence didn't make sense.
but no reason for
The
it to
Callahans
exist.
had checked in somewhere
No
that
crawl space.
officially didn't exist.
No plumbing.
They'd been handed a key by a
A
man who'd
demolition
been
crew
dead for
opened
months.
the wall carefully.
And then they'd vanished,
What they found
leaving
inside
behind the
shocked
same
everyone.
key twice.
A second,
She opened her
smaller
laptop
hidden
and
room.
pulled up archived
This one
property
sealed from the
photos from
inside
county
with rusted
records.
hinges and
The
nails.
earliest one was
No
dated
windows, no
1981.
doors.
Even then,
Inside
room
was a
7
child's
looked the same.
mattress.
Same
blankets,
paint color,
a rusted chamber
same
pot,
number plate.
a makeshift
But one thing
vent
stood
punched
out.
through the ceiling
In every
into the attic,
photo, a
and
figure
carved
appeared
into the
near the
wall
window,
over and over
sometimes
again
clear,
were 3
sometimes
letters.
blurred. Always
LB,
the same
LB,
silhouette of a man
LB,
standing just
LB,
behind the
but
curtain.
no body,
She
no
leaned
bones,
back in her
only a
chair,
name,
goosebumps
scratched
rising on
faintly
her
under a
arms.
painted
The
section of wall.
timestamp on the latest
Lily,
image was from a drone
help me,
survey
please.
taken 6 weeks
A
ago,
race against
decades
time.
after Grover's death.
This changed
That
everything.
night, long
Glass
after
knew
most
now
of the
there might
station
be a
had
7th
emptied,
victim who
Voss
wasn't
returned
dead,
to the motel.
or at least
She
wasn't
told
confirmed.
herself it was to double-check evidence.
If Lily was kept
But the
in that
truth
room,
was,
and
something
if there
about the
were no
place
remains,
demanded a second look.
it meant she may
The
have been
fog had
released
rolled in thick
or
again,
escaped.
swallowing the tree-line.
The timeline
The
was
vacancy
unclear,
sign buzzed
but
overhead,
the discovery
the sea
forced the department
flickering
to issue
on
a
and off
statewide
like a
search
pulse.
for anyone matching.
Voss parked her unmarked
Female
car by the
estimated
office
age
and grabbed
40
a
to
flashlight.
45.
The air was heavy,
Possibly named
thick with
Lily
humidity
B. or
and
Lily
the faint
Harlan,
scent of
lived
rot.
in or around
She stepped
Kalamazoo
inside
between
room
1980
7.
to
The
1990.
floorboards groaned beneath her boots.
No official birth
The
records.
flashlight beam cut through the dark,
Foster systems,
landing on the
school
phone,
rosters,
the mirror,
even hospital
the bed.
admittances were
Everything was as
cross-referenced.
before,
One
except
name
for one
finally
thing.
surfaced.
There was a note pinned to
Lily
the pillow.
Beck, born
It wasn't there
1981,
earlier. Her
was taken
gloved
in as a
hand
ward of the
trembled
state
as she
after being
unfolded
found
it.
wandering the
You
woods
checked in.
near Allegan
You
in
should have stayed.
1992.
Her pulse
No
spiked.
memory of her past.
She scanned the room,
She
every
had been
corner,
placed in
every
long-term
shadow.
care after being
Nothing.
diagnosed with
Then,
trauma-induced
softly,
amnesia.
the phone began
She
to
now
ring.
lived in a group home
Voss
in
froze.
Traverse City.
One ring.
Glass left that
She
night.
reached for it,
Face
hesitated,
to face,
then
Lily
lifted
Beck
the
sat
receiver.
quietly in the garden
Silence.
of her residential facility.
Who is this?
Her
The
eyes
line
following
crackled.
a butterfly with
Then a
childlike
faint voice
wonder.
whispered, almost
Detective
drowned by
Glass
static.
approached slowly,
She's still waiting
unsure
for
of
you.
how much Lily understood.
The line went dead.
The staff had
Voss
warned
stepped
her,
outside,
Lily had
adrenaline
limited
coursing
verbal
through her
ability,
veins.
though her
The
mind
fog
was
was
sharp
so
in
dense
unexpected
now
ways.
she could barely see the edge of the parking
Lily,
lot. Something
Glass said
moved
gently,
near the tree-line,
showing
a
her a
faint
photo of the
outline,
dollhouse.
human-shaped.
Do you remember
Police,
this?
she called.
Lily's
Come out with
eyes
your
locked
hands up.
onto it.
No response.
She reached out and gently
She drew
tapped
her
the tiny
flashlight
roof,
and advanced cautiously.
right where her initials
Her
had been
boots
carved.
sank into wet gravel.
She began
When she
to hum,
reached the spot, the
softly,
shape vanished into the fog.
a tune faint
But at
and
her
broken.
feet lay another object.
Glass
This
froze.
time, a small
It was
Polaroid
the same
photo,
lullaby
slick
Rosie
with
had
moisture.
been recorded singing
She
on
held
one of
it
the
up
tapes.
to the beam of light.
Lily
Her
looked
figure
up at
stood
her,
outside a motel
and for
door.
the first time,
A man,
spoke a
a
full
woman,
sentence.
a boy, a little girl.
Rosie was my
the
sister.
Callahan family. But this
Detective
photo
Ellen
was different
Glass
from the
sat
one
across
found
from Lily
inside
Beck
the
in a
office.
quiet room of
In
the
this
residential
one, they weren't
facility.
smiling.
The
Their
moment Lily
faces
said
were pale,
Rosie was my
almost
sister,
translucent,
the
and
entire
behind
investigation
them, half
took a
seen
dramatic
through the
shift.
curtain of room 7,
For months,
was
Rosie
the
had
faint
been the
outline
tragic
of a man's
centerpiece
shadow.
of a cold case
Watching
turned
them,
serial
the
investigation.
next morning, forensic
But now,
analysts
a
confirmed that
survivor
the
had
ink used on
emerged.
the note found in
Someone
room
who had
7
lived
matched
inside the
ink from the
walls,
motel's
who had
original
breathed
guest
the
ledger,
same damp,
paper that
secret
hadn't
air
been
as
touched
Rosie.
in over a
And
decade.
she wasn't just a
No
victim.
fingerprints.
She was family.
No prints on the Polaroid.
Glass
Note
steadied
in it.
her voice.
Voss sat in her office
Lily,
staring at the evidence.
Can you tell me about
Every
Rosie?
logical explanation crumbled
Lily's
under the
eyes
weight
shifted
of
toward
one
the window,
question.
where
Who
the
was
light
still
filtered
living in
through
that
trees.
motel?
She
Deputy
hummed the
Carter
lullaby
entered,
again.
holding a folder.
Then she whispered.
You're gonna want to see this,
She
he
braided
said,
my hair.
setting it on her desk.
We made stories
Inside
in
was
the
a
dark.
copy of the coroner's report
That was all
on
she
Daniel
said.
Grover, the
But it was
motel
enough.
owner. Heart failure,
Confirmation.
she read aloud.
Back in Kalamazoo,
Natural causes.
DNA tests were fast-tracked.
Yeah, Carter said,
A hair
scratching
strand
his
from
head.
Lily was compared
Except
to samples
the
recovered
body
from
wasn't
Rosie's
found in his
belongings.
house.
Within
She looked
48
up.
hours, the
Where
results
then?
came back.
He hesitated.
99.94% sibling
Voss
match.
closed the folder slowly.
Lily Beck was
Outside,
Lily Harlan.
the afternoon
The
light
final
dimmed
unconfirmed
behind
child
gathering
from
clouds.
the dollhouse roof carvings.
Somewhere down Highway 9,
Born in
a
1981,
neon sign
just
buzzed
2
to
years
life
before
again,
Rosie
flickering
disappeared.
faintly through the mist.
But something
Vacancy.
didn't fit.
And in room 7,
Lily was
the phone
born
began
after
to
Rosie
ring.
was hidden away in the room.
Twice. 3
Glass
times.
consulted with
until
child
finally,
psychologists and legal
someone picked up.
historians.
Detective
became
Serena
clear.
Voss didn't sleep that
Rosie
night.
may have been imprisoned
Even back
first,
at her apartment, the
but
sound
Lily
of the
had been
motel
born into
phone
that
ringing
horror.
echoed in her head.
Raised within
the voice,
captivity.
the note,
Her entire
the photo,
childhood spent
it all
inside
felt
walls,
wrong.
hidden
Not
from the
just
world.
as a crime scene, but
She
as
didn't
something
disappear.
deeper, something
She
that
simply
didn't
never
belong in the
existed
world
on
of
paper.
logic and reports.
That made
By
her
sunrise,
survival
she
all
had
the more
decided
remarkable.
she needed to go back
Into the
But
attic.
this time, she
With
wasn't
Lily's
going
memory
alone.
still fragile,
By mid-morning,
Glass
she
returned returned
and
to the
Deputy Carter
farmhouse.
were parked in front of
This
the
time,
Sunset
she
View
focused on
Motel
the
again.
attic.
A portable
Gregory
evidence
had
kit
mentioned
sitting
David
in the
being
back
kept
seat.
there before
The
Rosie.
vacancy sign was
If
still
Lily
buzzing,
had also been
even though
hidden,
the motel had
there had to be
officially
some
been
record.
closed off and taped
Something
by police
tangible.
2 days prior. The wind
Behind a
pushed the
false
police
panel,
tape
they
against
found
the
it.
signpost with
A
a
narrow
rhythmic
shelf
thwop thwop
built
thwop,
between the joists,
like the pulse of the
filled
place
with
itself.
spiral notebooks.
You sure about this?
Nearly 20 of them,
Carter asked,
written in
chewing
a
on a
cramped,
toothpick
obsessive
nervously.
scrawl.
We already swept
The
it
initials
twice.
R.H.
I'm sure,
Rosie Harlan
Voss said,
were on the
grabbing her
inside
flashlight.
of each front cover.
The Callahans aren't
The
the
notebooks
first people
were
to
diaries,
disappear around here.
pages and
I checked
pages
the
of
archives
entries
last
written in
night.
isolation.
5 unsolved cases
Lily's
within
hair
2
is
miles
soft.
of this place since
She asked why we don't go
1997.
outside.
All travelers.
I told her this is where
all
we
last
live.
seen heading north
cried.
on Highway 9.
I sang to her.
Carter looked out at the fog
Sarah says
pressing
I'm too
against the
loud.
tree line.
I think
And
she
all
hurt
roads
Lily.
lead back here.
I saw bruises.
Exactly.
I'll hide her when
They
I can.
stepped out of the car.
We
The
heard a
air was
dog barking.
unnaturally still.
I pressed
No
Lily's hand
birds,
to the vent so she'd
no
feel
insects. Just
I told her
silence.
the world is real.
Inside the office,
She didn't believe
dust
me.
motes hung like snowflakes in
The
the
entries
sunlight
ended
seeping
abruptly
through the
in
grimy window.
1991.
The photo wall
Glass
was bare
could hardly
again.
breathe as she
Voss
flipped
walked
through them.
behind the counter.
They didn't
The
just
old guest
confirm the
book lay
abuse.
closed,
They
its cracked
confirmed
leather
intent,
binding barely holding
calculation,
together. Last
generational
entry,
cruelty.
Carter said.
Rosie
Point.
had been mothering Lily
Callahan
while they were
family,
both prisoners.
written in pen.
The
But that's
cover-up,
impossible.
everything about the
We
case
scanned
now
it already.
pointed to Sarah
There was
Harlan,
no record of their
the
names
enforcer,
before.
the controller,
Voss
the
flipped the
surviving
page.
daughter who had
The
somehow
writing
evaded
was
the
there,
spotlight during
fresh,
the family's
bold,
disintegration.
unmistakable. Tom,
She'd
Melissa,
moved out of Michigan
Ben,
in the late
and
90s
Lucy Callahan.
and changed her last
Room
name.
7.
It
But
took
what
2
made her
days to
heart
find
lurch
her.
was the date beside it.
She was living in
October
Arizona
7th.
under the name
Wait
Sarah
a minute,
Lenning,
she whispered.
married to the very
That's
same retired
tomorrow.
officer, Charles
Carter
Lenning,
blinked.
who had dismissed
Tomorrow.
Rosie's case in
She
1981.
ran a gloved finger over the ink.
The connection
It
finally
smudged
came
slightly,
full circle.
still damp.
Sarah
Whoever
had married
wrote
the
this
cop
knew
who
we'd come
buried
back,
the case.
she said quietly.
The arrest glass
They're waiting.
coordinated with Arizona
They went to room
authorities
7.
for a surprise
The
visit.
door was open just a crack,
At
as if the
6:15
building
a.m.,
itself was exhaling.
officers arrived at a small
Inside,
adobe
the
house
air was
outside of
cold and
Flagstaff.
damp, the faint
Sarah
smell
answered
of
the
bleach
door with
hanging
bleary
over something
eyes,
fouler,
clutching a robe.
old decay hidden
Glass
under
stepped
forced
forward,
cleanliness.
badge out.
The room looked the same,
Sarah
but there was
Harlan,
one
she
change.
said.
A do not
You're
disturb
under arrest
sign
for the
hung from
kidnapping,
the inside
unlawful
knob.
imprisonment,
The cardboard was
and murder
torn
of
at the
multiple
edges, the
children in
words
Kalamazoo
faded,
County,
but someone
Michigan.
had clearly just placed it there.
Sarah didn't protest.
CSI didn't leave
She
that,
smiled.
Carter said.
I was
No,
wondering when you'd
Voss
come.
replied. Someone's still
The
using this
interrogation.
room. She stepped inside,
In the interview room,
flashlight
Sarah
sweeping
remained
over the walls.
disturbingly calm.
The curtains were
She
drawn,
requested coffee,
but thin
drank it
slivers of
slowly,
daylight carved
and answered
through,
every question
catching
with an
something near
unnerving
the dresser,
flatness.
scratches in the
Glass
wood,
leaned in.
dozens of them, small
Why did you
and
imprison
deliberate.
Rosie?
What the hell?
Why did you kill
Carter
David?
muttered, crouching to look.
Sarah blinked.
They weren't random
Because they were
scratches.
weak.
They were tallies,
They cried.
carved deep
They
into the
asked
grain.
questions.
32
Weakness
marks,
spreads
Voss
like
said
mold.
after counting.
And
Someone
Lily?
was keeping track.
Lily was
Of what?
an accident.
Before she could answer,
Mom said she was
the
a
phone on the
punishment.
nightstand rang.
But Rosie wouldn't
Both
let her
of them
grow
froze.
upright.
It was
She
an
protected
old
her,
rotary phone,
lied for
the
her,
same one that
loved her.
supposedly had no active
I was trying
line.
to fix that.
Voss glanced at Carter,
Glass narrowed
then
her
picked
eyes.
up the receiver.
Did you kill
This
Rosie?
is Detective Voss.
Sarah's lips
Identify yourself.
twitched. Number Rosie
A
died on
faint
her own.
static hissed in her
She
ear,
stopped eating.
followed by a
She
voice.
gave everything to
a
Lily.
man's this time.
Her strength, her body, her
You
hope.
shouldn't be here.
I didn't need
Who
to kill
is
her.
this? She
She
demanded.
did it herself.
Silence.
The final
Then the
tape.
sound of breathing.
Back at the
Room
house,
7 isn't
one
yours.
final tape was found
She
behind a
slammed the
wall
phone
panel
down.
in the hidden room.
Carter swallowed
It was
hard.
dated August
You
14th,
get a trace?
1991.
No line to trace.
The screen flickered
Outside,
to life,
as they regrouped near the
showing
car,
Rosie,
one of the
thin,
forensic techs
pale,
approached
her hair in
carrying a
braids,
plastic
eyes
evidence
bright
bag.
despite the squalor.
Found this under the bed.
She looked
he
into the
said.
camera and
Inside
spoke.
the bag was an old cassette
If you're
tape.
watching
The
this,
label nearly
then I
peeled
didn't
away.
make it.
Faded marker
But maybe
letters
Lily
read,
did.
"Do not play."
Maybe she found the vent.
Voss took it carefully.
Or the door.
We'll listen to it
Or
back
maybe
at the
someone
station.
finally cared enough
The tech
to look.
nodded. Also,
Lily is
something
strong.
else. You're not
She
going to
deserves
believe
the
this.
sun.
There's a crawl
Please,
space
let her have
behind
it.
the bathroom wall.
The
Looks
screen
like it
cut
was
to black.
sealed off decades ago.
Closure, and
Show
not
me.
Rosie's body was
The crawl
never
space
recovered.
was narrow, just
Despite
big enough for a
excavation,
person to squeeze
sonar,
through.
and even
Carter
drone-based
used a
ground
crowbar to
scans of
pry
the
open
entire
the
Harlan
thin paneling.
property and
Dust
nearby
poured
woods.
out in choking
No
waves.
remains were ever
The
found.
flashlight beam revealed a
Gregory
tunnel-like
insisted she
cavity
died
running behind the
quietly in her
rooms.
bed.
Wooden beams slick with
She
moisture.
held Lily's hand.
At the
he
far
said.
end, the
I
light
buried
caught
her
something white.
beneath the trees.
Papers?
I just don't remember
Photographs.
where.
Hundreds
I
of
was
them.
too broken.
Pinned to
A
the
memorial
wood,
was
hanging
erected
by
on the
rusted
property.
nails, all
7 stones in a
overlapping like
circle,
scales.
one for
Every
each
single
victim.
one was a Polaroid.
One
Faces,
stone remained blank,
families,
carved
solo
only with
travelers,
the initials R.H.
all standing outside
Lily
the
attended
motel,
the ceremony.
all smiling.
She
and
held
on the
a
bottom of
sunflower
each
in one
photo,
hand,
the same
and one
black
of Rosie's
marker
notebooks
words.
in the other.
Checked in.
She didn't
Carter's
speak,
voice cracked.
But when the
There's
wind
got to be
rustled the
100 of
trees. She smiled.
More, Voss murmured.
The
Some of
Harlan
these go back
farmhouse was
decades.
scheduled for demolition.
She pulled one
Too many
loose near the
bodies,
top corner.
too many
It was
memories,
dated
too
1978.
much darkness
The
soaked
man in the
into its
photo wore
foundations.
bell-bottoms and held a suitcase.
After multiple
Every person
exhumations,
who ever
arrests,
vanished
and
around
media
here,
storms,
she said,
the county
they
deemed
were
it
all
unsalvageable.
photographed. But by who?
But before the wrecking
Voss
crews
turned the
moved in,
photo over.
Detective
On the
Ellen
back,
Glass
written
received
in
one
faint
final
handwriting.
request.
Taken by
From Lily
D.G.
Beck.
Daniel Grover.
She wanted to go back.
She said. The
Not
owner.
alone, and
At
not
the
for
station
long.
that evening,
Just
the tape
long enough
labeled
to
"Do
stand in
Not
the
Play"
place
was
she
queued
once
up in the
thought was
audio
the
lab.
entire world.
Voss and Carter sat behind the
Glass
glass as
arranged
the
for a
technician
quiet,
pressed play.
supervised visit.
At first,
No
only
cameras,
static.
no press.
Then a faint
Only
hum,
Lily, two
like an old
caseworkers,
radio
and
frequency
Glass
searching
herself.
for signal. And then
Returning
a voice.
to the room.
A woman's voice.
The door
If you're
to the
hearing
hidden
this,
room had been
you've
removed
already
and
been here
stored
too
as
long.
evidence.
Her tone
Now,
was calm
the
but
gaping square in
trembling,
the living
words
room
echoing
floor stood
faintly as though
exposed.
recorded in a
A
large,
narrow wooden
empty
stairwell
room.
descended
He
into
watches
still
the
air,
ones who stay.
heavy with mildew
He says
and
the
memory.
rooms remember faces.
Lily stood at the top
He makes
of the
me take the
steps,
pictures so
trembling.
he doesn't have to see what
Glass
happens
offered
next.
her a hand.
The sound of
You don't
shuffling
have to go
papers.
down.
A sob.
But
Please,
Lily did.
If you find this,
She
burn
descended
the
one
photos.
step at a time,
Burn the walls.
her knuckles white
Don't
against
let him
the
keep
handrail.
them. A long
When
pause.
she reached the room,
Then,
she stopped
almost
in the doorway.
inaudibly,
Her
he said
eyes
I could
scanned
leave
the
if I
place
finished
she
the
had once
book.
lived.
I finished
The
the
pink
book.
walls now stripped of wallpaper.
The tape stopped.
The bed frame
Carter
rusted.
leaned back, pale.
The air
The
heavy
book?
with rot.
The guest book? Voss
She
nodded
walked slowly to the corner near
and
the
she said,
bookshelf
he
and
makes
knelt.
me take the pictures.
With a shaking
That
finger,
means she wasn't alone.
she traced a faint
There
line
was
on
someone
the
else
wall.
helping him.
L plus
But who?
R equals sunlight.
Before Voss could respond, a tech burst into
Lily
the room.
closed her eyes.
Detective, you
She
need to see
remembered.
this. He handed her a
secrets of the
printed
floor
report.
before
It
demolition.
was a photo comparison
Ellen requested
analysis.
one final
Old
ground
property
scan beneath
records
the secret
versus
room's
photos
foundation.
found in the crawl space.
She had a
Voss
hunch.
flipped through them quickly.
Rosie's body hadn't
These
been
are the
found
missing
above or
persons,
in the
right?
woods.
Yes, ma'am.
But what if
But
Gregory,
the weird part
scared of
isn't the
discovery,
faces.
buried
It's
her
the
beneath
background.
the place she
Look
loved
closer.
most?
She
A
did,
place she
and
believed
realized
Lily
what he
might one
meant.
day escape from.
Every photo, no matter the decade,
time,
showed the
they
same
scanned
backdrop,
deeper.
the same
Past
cloudy
the false
sky,
base,
the
and
same
below the
slant of
concrete
sunlight,
piers.
the same open
The
door
radar
of
beeped.
room 7. Each
6 feet
photo
below the northwest
frozen at what
corner of
looked
the
like
hidden
the
room,
exact same moment
there
in
was a
time.
cavity.
That night,
The
Voss
crew
returned to her
excavated
apartment
carefully,
and spread everything
within 2
across her
hours,
dining table.
unearthed
The two
a small
keys,
wooden
the
box
cassette,
wrapped in
the
plastic.
Polaroids, the guest book photos,
Inside were
and the
fabric
do not
remnants,
disturb
a
sign.
gold necklace,
The sign
and
caught her
skeletal
eye again.
remains.
Something about the
Dental
font
records,
looked newer.
matched against Rosie's
She turned it
childhood
over.
dental visits
On the
from
back,
1977.
scrawled in the same shaky
confirmed the
handwriting
truth.
from the tape. Don't
Rosie
listen
Harlan
to him.
had been found.
He's still here.
The news
Meanwhile,
breaks again.
at the Sunset View Motel, a
The media
county
swarmed
patrol
once
car
more.
rolled past the front lot
Final
for the
victim
nightly
of the Harlan
sweep.
family
Through
discovered
the
beneath
windshield,
secret room.
the deputy
glared
saw the
across
lights
national
flicker on
headlines.
in room 7.
News
The
vans
door
crowded
creaked
the
open.
property for days.
A figure stepped
Everyone
out,
wanted the
tall,
image.
thin,
The angel
wearing a
of the
brown
floor.
cardigan.
The
He
girl
looked
who had
directly at
sacrificed
the
her
patrol
life
car,
to shield her sister.
then smiled. When backup
Rosie's
arrived
photo,
5 minutes
red
later,
hair,
the room
gap-toothed
was empty
smile,
again.
became
But on the
iconic.
nightstand,
People
a fresh
demanded
guest
justice,
book entry waited.
memorials, documentaries.
Serena Voss, room 7,
Glass ignored
check-in,
them all.
October 8th.
She wasn't
The
interested
front
in
office
selling
of
a
the
story.
Sunset View Motel was a
She was
time
interested
capsule,
in
a
finishing
small, wood-paneled lobby
final
with a cracked
charges with
vending
Rosie's
machine humming
remains
in the
recovered.
corner and a
The
faded
prosecution
"No
had its final
vacancy"
nail.
sign that hadn't been lit in
Combined
years.
with diaries,
The smell of
photos,
stale
forensic
coffee
evidence,
and damp carpet
Lily's
hung thick in the
testimony,
air.
even limited.
When Detective
The
Clara
case
Vale
against
and
Sarah
Officer
Harlan
Ben
became
Rourke
airtight.
stepped inside,
She
the
was
old
charged
bell
with
above the door gave a
5
half-hearted
counts of
jingle.
first-degree
Behind
murder,
the counter stood
2
a
counts of
frail man
kidnapping
in his
and
late
unlawful
60s.
imprisonment.
His name tag
Conspiracy to
was
cover
pinned
up child
crookedly
abuse
to a
and
yellowed
death.
shirt. His
Accessory
skin
to
looked
murder
like
in
paper
the deaths
stretched
of
too
David,
thin over
Maya,
bone,
and
his
Rosie
eyes
Charles
watery
Lenning,
and sunken,
her husband
but sharp
and
enough
former
to notice
officer,
every move they
was
made.
charged with conspiracy,
"Morning,"
obstruction
Clara
of
said
justice,
softly,
and
flashing her
tampering with
badge.
evidence.
"We're with
He pled
Ashgrove
not
PD.
guilty.
You must
But
be
after
Mr.
just 2
Danner."
weeks in county
The
jail,
man gave a hesitant
he was
nod.
found dead by
Been a
suicide
long
in
time
his cell.
since anyone called me Mr.
His final note
he
read,
said with a faint,
"I told
raspy
myself
laugh.
I didn't know.
Everyone just calls me
But I
Earl
knew."
these days. You
Rosie's
folks hear
room
about them
reconstructed.
graves?" Ben leaned
In the
against
months
the counter.
following the trial,
That's right.
a group of
You've
trauma
been running
therapists,
this place
survivors, and child
Earl's
advocacy
gaze drifted
workers
toward the
launched
dusty
a
window.
project in Rosie's
Rain
honor.
tapped against the glass.
They called it
Since
the Hidden
92.
Room Project.
My wife
A
ran the
touring
front desk
installation
before she
designed
passed.
to replicate
We
the
kept
room
the place
Rosie
going
lived in,
even after
based
the
on crime
highway
scene
changed
photos
routes.
and diary entries.
Not much business after
But with
that.
one key difference.
Just the kind that likes being
Visitors
left
exit
alone.
through a door Rosie
Clara
never had.
exchanged a look with Ben.
One marked with
And what
sunlight.
kind is that?
The
The
exhibit
kind that
served
pays
two
in
purposes.
cash and doesn't like questions,
Education,
Earl said simply.
highlighting the
You
dangers
work
of
nights
isolation,
long enough,
the
you learn
flaws
to
in the
stop
child
wondering
welfare
who
system,
people are.
and the
It's
importance
safer that
of
way.
investigating missing
He
children
reached below the
thoroughly.
counter and pulled out a small box
Memorial,
filled with tarnished keys.
honoring Rosie,
You want to
David,
see the
and
rooms?
the others who didn't
I can
survive.
give you the master key. Clara
Lily was
noticed the
present
tremor
at the
in his
ribbon
hands.
cutting in Kalamazoo.
Before we do, Earl, I need to
She
ask,
stood
do
silently
you
as
remember
a
the
choir of
Thompsons?
children sang
The family
Rosie's
that
favorite
stayed here
song.
last month.
You
His
are my
expression
sunshine.
flickered. He
She
rubbed at
cried,
the corner of his
and
mouth.
for the first time,
The ones with the little
she
girl?
didn't hide it.
Yeah. They came in
The house
after dark,
falls on a
said they were
cold,
driving through to
overcast
see
morning.
relatives in Denver.
Bulldozers arrived
Took
at the
room
Harlan
7.
property.
Nice folks.
Lily didn't
Quiet.
attend,
And
but
you
she
didn't
asked
see
Glass
them
to
leave?
bring her a piece of the
Ben
door.
asked. Earl
Just
shook
a
his
sliver.
head. Checked the
A
cameras
reminder
the
that
next
she had
morning.
lived
Not a
and
damn
escaped
thing.
and
Just their
survived.
car sitting out
As the
back
first
and the
wall
room
crumbled,
door locked from the
a
inside.
burst of dust
The
shot
detective's
upward,
brow
like
furrowed.
a spirit breaking
Locked
free.
from the inside? He
The
nodded.
last thing to fall
That's what's
was
been
the secret
eaten
room's
at me.
foundation.
I got the only
And with
spare
it,
key,
the
and when I
final
opened it,
remnant of what had
beds were
once been
made,
Rosie's
lights
prison
off, TV
and
unplugged.
Lily's cradle.
Looked like they just
A new
vanished.
life Lily Beck
Earl
began
swallowed
therapy in
hard
earnest
and looked
after
down
that.
at the counter as though
With
afraid of his
professional
own
help,
words.
her memory
This
slowly
ain't the first
returned,
time either.
fragment
There's been
by
others.
fragment.
They followed
She
Earl down
remembered
the
a
narrow
birthday.
hallway. The
She
carpet
remembered Rosie
squished
teaching
underfoot,
her to read with
damp
picture
from the
books.
humidity.
She
Most
remembered
of the room
pretending the
doors were
ceiling
shut,
vent was a window
numbers
to the
worn
stars.
off from years of
But
neglect.
most of all,
The hum of a
she remembered
flickering
feeling
neon
loved,
sign
not
outside
by her
bled through the
parents,
window at the end
not
of the
by Sarah,
corridor. Earl
but by
stopped
Rosie.
in front of room 7.
Fiercely,
He hesitated before
unconditionally.
slipping the key into the lock.
she began writing.
You ever get the
first
feeling a
with
place
assistance,
don't want to be opened?
then on her
He
own.
muttered. The door
memoir,
creaked open,
Rosie's
and the
Light,
smell hit
would
first.
go on to become
Old
a
detergent
bestseller.
mixed with mildew and something
She ended it
faintly
with the
metallic.
same words Rosie spoke on
Inside,
the final
everything
tape.
was frozen in time.
Maybe someone
a
finally
single
cared
double
enough to
bed,
look.
beige curtains drawn
Just when
shut,
Detective
a
Ellen
Bible
Glass
on the
thought the
nightstand.
case had reached its
But the air
conclusion,
felt wrong.
a call
Heavy.
came from the
Clara's
evidence archives.
flashlight beam swept across the
A
walls.
box,
Who
misfiled,
cleaned this room
mislabeled,
last?
and nearly
Earl shook
discarded,
his head.
had been
Ain't
found
nobody
in the
been in
basement
here
of the
since
county
that
sheriff's
family
office.
disappeared. Didn't
It had
feel
been
right.
retrieved during the
Ben
original Harlan
crouched by the
property
dresser,
search,
pulling
but
it
had never
open.
been properly
Dust
cataloged.
on everything. No
Inside
fingerprints,
were 8
no
cassette
signs
tapes,
of a struggle.
each labeled with
He
only a
turned
date.
toward the bathroom.
The earliest,
Water lines looked
February
dry
2nd,
too.
1983.
Clara noticed something odd near the phone on the
latest,
nightstand.
July
a
9th,
small,
1991.
faded sticker with numbers scribbled
Glass
in blue
ordered a
ink.
secure playback
Number
setup in the
42,
forensic media
1
room.
a.m.
The
What's
contents,
this?
she suspected,
She asked.
might be
Earl
grim,
squinted.
but they
Oh,
could also be
that's
vital.
an internal extension.
What they revealed
Each room can
changed
dial
everything.
the office or
Again.
another room. 42
Tape
would
1.
have been the old maintenance closet,
Instructions.
but that line's been dead
The
for
first
years.
tape was purely
Ben
audio.
frowned.
A
You
man's
sure?
voice,
Earl
low,
nodded.
firm,
Cut
eerily
the wires
calm,
myself when the
spoke
phone
into the
company
recorder.
switched us over.
This will
Whole
serve as
system's
proof of
useless now.
instruction. The
Clara
girl will
wrote it down
remain
anyway.
downstairs until
If
she
it's
learns.
dead, why would
You are
someone
not to
dial
engage
it?
unless
The
necessary.
old man's hand trembled
Sarah,
slightly
this
as
is
he
your duty.
wiped sweat from his
You
brow.
are the strong one.
Sometimes, he
Glass
whispered,
froze.
those phones ring
The voice
anyway.
belonged to Walter
Back
Harlan,
in the office,
the family
detectives
patriarch.
requested to view the old
Rosie
surveillance
must be
footage.
broken of her will.
Earl
She
hesitated
speaks
before
too much.
pulling a dusty
She
VHS
asks too
player
much.
from beneath the counter.
If she is to be of
It's
use,
all
she
analog,
must obey.
he said.
There was
Camera
no
feeds
remorse,
used to go straight
no
to tape.
conflict.
Only
Just
one still
cold
works,
doctrine.
the one over the parking
It
lot.
was clear now.
He slid
Rosie's
in a tape
imprisonment
dated
wasn't
March
a
4th,
spontaneous act of
2017,
abuse.
the night the
It was
Thompsons
systematic
vanished.
and carefully
The black
constructed.
and white footage
A
flickered
belief
to life.
system rooted in
They
dominance,
watched as a car
control,
pulled into the
and
lot at
religious
9:37 p.m.
Tape
A
2.
man, woman, and
Disobedience.
small girl got out.
The next
They checked
recording
in
was
at the
from
front
3
desk,
months later.
then walked to
A
room
scuffle,
7.
muffled cries.
At 12:58
Then a young
a.m.,
girl's
the
voice,
screen shimmered.
Rosie's, trying
the
to
static
reason.
thickened for a few
I'm sorry.
seconds, and
I just
through the
wanted to see
haze,
the sky.
a faint
Please,
figure
I'll be
appeared at
good.
the edge of the parking lot.
Then came a slap.
Tall, wearing
A
what
woman's
looked like a
voice,
dark
sharp
coat.
and cold.
Ben leaned forward.
Sarah,
Can you zoom in?
you don't get to make
Earl
wishes.
shook his head.
You're a sinner.
Not on this system.
You stay here
But
until
look
you're
closer.
fixed.
The figure didn't
The
move
tape ended
normally.
with the sound of
It seemed
Rosie
to glide
softly
just
singing
out of the
to
camera's
herself.
focus.
The
The head
same
tilted
lullaby.
upward toward room
Glass
7's
clenched
window.
her fists.
At 1:02
Every inch
a.m.,
of this
the
case
screen went
revealed
black.
deeper evil.
Power outage?
Tape 3.
Claire asked. Earl
Arrival.
exhaled shakily.
This recording
No,
was the most
that's
disturbing
the part
so
one
far.
can't explain.
Footsteps echoed
Power
on
never
wooden
went out
stairs.
that night.
A baby cried.
Cameras just
Then
stopped.
Sarah's voice
He
hushed.
rewound another section, this time from 2 weeks
I know.
before the Thompsons.
It's cold down here.
Another lone
She'll
traveler
take care of
arriving
you.
late, checking
Rosie knows
into
what
room
to do.
7. Same time
Then
frame.
Rosie, her voice much
Same
older
glitch.
now, shocked.
When the footage came
is she?
back, the traveler's
Your
car was
sister.
still there,
Her
but he
name's Lily.
wasn't. Same
Don't let her
thing every
forget who you
time, Earl murmured.
The crying continued.
Different guests.
Rosie,
Same room.
what
Same
am I
hour.
supposed to do?
The detective
Sarah,
stepped outside
be her
as
mother.
night crept in, in.
Or she dies.
The motel lights flickered to
The tape
life,
clicked off.
casting long shadows
Tape
across
4.
the cracked pavement.
Visitors.
Ben glanced back at the
Glass's
lobby.
eyes narrowed
He's
as she
hiding
played the
something.
fourth tape.
That story's
This one
too
included
rehearsed.
a voice she recognized.
Clara didn't answer.
A child welfare
Her gaze
officer
was
from
fixed
the
on the second
1980s.
floor, where one window glowed
Glass pulled old
faintly,
records
the
and
one
confirmed it.
belonging to room 7.
James Mead,
I don't think
who
he's
had
lying,
conducted a welfare
she said
check on
quietly.
the Harlan property in
I think he's
1986
scared.
after
Of
a
what?
neighbor's complaint
Ben
about
asked.
screaming.
She hesitated,
according to the
watching the
records,
curtain move
he had
slightly,
found
though
nothing
no one was
suspicious.
inside. Of the night
On the
shift,
tape,
she
Walter
whispered,
Harlan greets him
same
warmly.
as the last guests who
Just the
disappeared.
little ones today.
Later that
Gregory's
night, as
off
the
at school.
detectives packed up,
Rosie's
Earl
visiting
sat alone
relatives.
at the front desk,
The
nursing
man's
a
voice was
lukewarm
casual,
cup of coffee.
distracted.
The wind
There were
howled
no sounds of
outside,
searching,
rattling the glass
just
doors.
coffee being poured.
The phone on the counter
Then
buzzed
Walter,
once,
barely
a
audible,
faint click,
murmurs,
then went dead.
God watches
He
when the
stared
world
at it for a
doesn't.
moment, jaw tightening. The line
That
had
he
been
does, Mr.
disconnected
Harlan.
for years.
That he does.
He knew that better than anyone.
The tape ends.
Then the phone rang again.
The pattern of
Earl's
protection
hand trembled
glass
as he
couldn't
picked
shake
up the
horror.
receiver.
Over
Hello.
the years,
For a
5
long
different
moment,
state
there
and
was
county
nothing,
employees
just
visited
static.
the Harlan home.
Then a voice,
All left
low and
without
distant,
incident.
whispered through
None
the line.
filed follow-up
Check them out,
reports.
Earl.
Were
The
they
call cut
coerced?
off.
Or
Earl
just
dropped the
lazy?
phone, eyes
Or
darting
worse,
to the window.
complicit?
Outside, room 7's light
She
flickered
launched
once
a quiet
and went dark.
investigation into
The
surviving
morning
employees
after their
from
visit
that
to the
era.
Sunset View Motel,
What she found
Detective Clara
was a
Vale
network
was
of
already on
apathy,
her second cup of
reinforced
black
by
coffee
Walter's
when
community
Ben Rourke
power and
burst into the
influence.
precinct,
A
holding a
respected church
plastic
leader,
evidence bag.
he held leverage
Inside
through
was
donations,
a worn Vitch's
local
tape labeled
favors,
Camera
even
2
police endorsements.
Archive. He
They had
slapped
built
it
a
onto
house
her
of
desk.
secrets,
You're going to
and
want to
everyone
see
helped
this.
keep it standing.
Clara looked up from her notes.
Tape 5.
Please tell me that's
Escape
not
attempt.
another one of Earl's ghost
This
stories.
one hurt to listen to.
Not this time, Ben
Rosie's
said.
voice. Panicked,
Maintenance crew
panting.
found it in one of
She's
the ceiling
sick.
vents
She has a
above
fever.
room 9.
I need medicine.
Looks like someone
Please, I
stashed
think
it there a
she's
while
dying.
ago. The dust
Then
was
Sarah,
caked an inch
cold
thick.
and unmoved.
Clara's eyebrows knit
You'll figure
together.
it out.
Room 9?
Pause.
The one
A thud.
sealed off for mold.
Then Rosie screams.
Yeah, and get
I'll
this.
get out.
The
I'll
tape
tell
dates
them.
from
I swear to
2014.
God I will.
Way before the
Then
Thompsons
silence.
disappeared.
The tape ends.
She exhaled
Glass
slowly.
could almost hear
All
the
right,
iron door
let's see
slamming
what we've
shut.
got.
Tape 6.
They brought the tape to
The
the
confession.
department's AV lab,
July
where an aging tech
1991.
named Rory handled
Rosie sounds
old
weak.
analog
Her
conversions.
voice is faint.
He slid the
words
Vitchus
slow.
into a machine that
I
looked
don't
like
have
it
long.
belonged in a
I
museum.
stopped eating.
Lucky this thing
I gave
still
Lily my
works,
soup.
he muttered,
I couldn't keep
pressing
it down
play.
anyway.
The screen flickered
She
to
coughs.
life in fuzzy black and
If
white.
someone ever finds
The
this,
timestamp read
please
April
don't let her
6,
grow up in here.
2014,
I tried.
11:59 p.m.
I tried to be enough.
At first, the
I'm
footage
sorry,
showed
Lily.
nothing unusual.
sorry I couldn't
the
be
exterior
more.
of the motel, empty parking
tape
lot,
hisses for
faint
several
rain
minutes.
falling.
Then
the
the
frame
last
shook
words.
slightly as if the
I hope
camera
you
were
find the sun.
handheld, not fixed.
Tape 7.
Then the view shifted.
Sarah's diary.
Someone was walking
This
down the
final
corridor,
recording wasn't
their
made by
breathing
Rosie.
audible over the
It was
faint
Sarah.
hum of static.
She had recorded herself
Whoever shot
sometime in
this,
1992.
Rory said, squinting,
after Rosie's death
was inside.
and before Lily's
The
escape.
figure's shadow briefly crossed the
She's
lens
gone.
as they passed each
I
door.
buried her with the
room
doll.
3, room 5,
The little one doesn't
room
understand
7.
yet.
The camera lingered
I'll
there.
break her the way I couldn't
Behind the
break
door,
Rosie.
a woman's
This time,
voice
no
could be heard
stories,
faintly
no songs,
humming.
just
A
silence.
lullaby, just audible
she
beneath
whispers
the hiss
something
of the
chilling.
tape. Clara's
The Lord
hand froze
cleanses
on her
those who are
notepad.
willing.
Ben, that's the
others,
same melody Earl said
he
he heard over
discards.
the phone. The
Glass
humming
turned the tape
continued,
off.
soft but
There was
deliberate.
no remorse,
Then
no
came
regret,
3 sharp knocks.
only ideology.
The voice stopped. For several
Faith twisted
seconds,
into a weapon.
nothing moved.
The
Then the
missing
door
8th
creaked
tape.
open just enough to reveal a
Only
sliver
7
of light.
tapes had been reviewed.
A hand, small,
box was
pale,
labeled
and
8
trembling,
tapes.
reached through the gap.
Glass searched the
then
evidence
muttered,
locker
"Isis?"
records and found a
The
discrepancy.
camera zoomed in shaky.
The 8th tape
The
had
hand
been
dropped
logged
something on the
and then
floor,
removed.
a motel key,
Signed out
glinting
by a
under the
former
dim light.
deputy in
The key
2005.
tag read number 9.
He'd never
The
returned
camera
it.
panned back slightly
deputy's
as if the
name?
person filming
Stephen
realized what
Marks.
they were seeing.
He
Then
died
a
in
whisper filled
2011.
the audio, muffled
But his
but
personal
distinct.
belongings,
Don't check
boxed
out.
and stored in
Not
county
yet.
archives,
A burst
had never
of
been
static
thoroughly
filled the
cataloged.
screen. When the footage
Glass
returned,
requested
the hallway
access.
was empty.
A
But at
glimmer
the
of
bottom
hope.
of the frame, faint writing
Among the old
appeared,
boxes of
probably
uniforms
drawn
and
onto the
photos,
tape in
she
marker
found
long
a plastic
ago.
VHS
Tapes
case.
keep playing themselves.
Inside was the final
Rory
tape,
stopped the playback
unlabeled,
and turned to Clara.
unmarked.
You want me to
Glass
enhance
popped
the
it into
audio?
the player.
She nodded.
The screen flickered
Pull
to life.
everything you can.
It showed Lily,
especially
maybe
the voice.
10 years old,
He
curled up
rewound the
under
segment
blankets
and
in the
began
hidden room.
isolating frequencies.
And beside her,
As the
a
hum
figure lay
deepened,
motionless.
another sound emerged
Rosie.
beneath it, faint,
But then,
rhythmic clicks.
movement.
Wait, Ben said.
Lily
That's
stirred,
Morse code.
climbed to her knees,
Rory tapped a few
crawled to the
keys,
vent.
translating
She pressed her hands
automatically.
to it.
The
She
computer
whispered,
rendered 3 words.
"I'll find the door."
Look under floor.
And then the
A
camera
silence
slowly tilted
fell over the
upward
room.
toward a sliver
Clara
of ceiling
straightened
light.
in her chair.
Rosie
Ben,
had filmed
get
it.
the warrant.
Her final
We're going
gift,
back to the motel.
proof of Lily's will
By
to
late
survive.
afternoon, a forensics van was
Helen
parked
Glass
outside
had
the
unsolved
Sunset View
murders
Motel,
before.
its red
She had
lights
tracked
flashing
serial
against the
killers,
faded blue
exposed
paint of the
cover-ups,
building.
cracked
Earl
cold
Danner
cases
stood
left
by
in
the
moldy
door,
cardboard
chain
boxes
smoking,
for
his
decades.
eyes red from
But
sleeplessness.
this was different.
I told you there's
Rosie's
something wrong
story
in that
wasn't
room,
just about
he
one
rasped
broken
as they
family
entered room
or
9.
one hidden room.
Clara stepped
It
inside
was about
first.
how many
The
people
air was
looked away.
thick, sour. The smell
As
of
the
rot barely
investigation
masked by
deepened,
old
the
cleaning
fallout
products.
widened.
The wallpaper
Ellen
had
realized
peeled
the
in
Harlan
long
family
strips,
had succeeded
exposing
not because
cracked
they were
plaster.
cunning, but
Forensics
because the
started
system
lifting
let
the
them.
boards beneath the carpet
And
near
now,
the bed.
she intended
Within
to
minutes,
dismantle that
one of them
system,
froze.
piece
Detective,
by piece.
the tech called, voice
The
unsteady.
staff who knew
Beneath
over
the
40
floorboards
interviews
lay
were
a shallow
conducted with
cavity
former
filled
Michigan
with old
Child
plastic
Protective
cases,
Service workers,
dozens of them,
local officers,
VHS tapes,
and school
each
officials
carefully
from the
labeled in the
1980s
same
and early
neat
90s.
handwriting. Clara
At least
crouched
6
down,
admitted
reading the
to either.
labels. Guest
Filing
12/8,
incomplete reports.
1999.
Ignoring
Room
warning
7,
signs,
May
trusting
2002.
Walter Harlan's good
Check out
standing in
3
the
to
church
2007.
and Community 1.
Her stomach turned.
Marjorie
There were
Neely,
dozens.
now in her late 70s,
Earl covered his
broke
mouth,
down during
shaking
questioning.
his head. I didn't know.
I remember seeing
I swear
bruises
I
on
didn't
the
know.
oldest girl.
Ben's voice was
Sarah.
quiet. Someone's
thought
been
maybe it was
filming
just a
guests here
strict
for
household.
decades. They set
should
up
have
an
asked
evidence
more.
table in the motel's
should have
old
fought
breakfast
harder.
room. The tapes
Ellen
spanned
stared
nearly
her down.
20 years.
But you
Every one of
didn't.
them contained footage of guests,
Marjorie wept.
men, women,
Number I
families, sleeping,
And now those
talking,
children are
brushing their
bones in the
teeth,
dirt.
completely unaware they
The
were being
foster
recorded.
system loophole
But
state
one detail
investigators
stood
found
out.
glaring
Every
gaps
few
in the
tapes,
foster
the
care
footage
pipeline
ended
that
abruptly
allowed
at
Walter
1
and
a.m.
Ann Harlan to house
And in each
children
of those
like
recordings,
David DJ,
a faint
the
sound could be
earliest
heard
known
through the
victim,
static,
without
a
proper
click,
documentation.
followed by that same haunting lullaby.
Old records
By
showed that in
nightfall,
1971,
Clara couldn't shake the
a
feeling
fire
that they were
destroyed
being
a
watched.
state archive
The
warehouse.
motel's walls seemed to
Dozens
hum
of
with a
adoption
low
and foster
vibration,
files were
as if the
lost.
building itself were
Several
listening.
children were then
Later,
placed
as the
informally
forensic team
with
packed up,
families by
Ben motioned
overwhelmed
Clara into the
caseworkers.
office. Found
Walter
something
Harlan had
else in the
personally
back,
signed
he
for
said,
DJ, but
holding
no
up a small
follow-ups were
box
ever
of
made.
Polaroids. They
No
spread
school
the
records,
photos across the desk.
no medical history,
Each one showed
not a
a
single
different guest,
welfare check after
smiling at the check-in counter,
1973.
unaware that the
It was
photo
as if
was being
David had
taken.
vanished the
In the
moment he
corner
entered
of
the house.
every Polaroid was a
The
handwritten
financial
number,
trail
the
glass
same as their
requested
room
all
number
available
and a
tax
time.
and donation records
Each time
connected
read
to the Harlan's
exactly
church,
1 a.m.
Second
Clara
Elm
frowned.
Pentecostal.
These
A
must have been
tight-knit
taken
but
right
powerful
before they
congregation
vanished.
in
But then she
Kalamazoo's
noticed
rural
something
belt.
else. In the reflection of
church
the
had
glass
shut down
door
in
behind each
2002
subject
after a
stood the
fraud
same
scandal.
figure.
But its old
Unfocused,
records were archived.
always watching.
That's
As
when
they
she
prepared
found
to leave for the night, Earl
From
came stumbling into the
1977
office,
to
pale as
1988,
chalk.
monthly
You need to come
payments
with
of
me,
$300
he said
to
breathlessly.
$500
Now,
were made to the
he
Harlan
led them
family
back toward the
from a
maintenance
fund
hall,
labeled
an area
Special
blocked
Youth
off for
Placement
years.
Assistance.
The fluorescent
The
lights
checks were
flickered
signed
weakly
by
above.
Pastor Gerald Rusk,
At the end of the corridor,
fiery
he
preacher
stopped at a
who had
locked
died
door
in
marked
1995.
electrical. I used
His
to hear
sermons,
things in there at
stored on
night,
VHS,
Earl said
were
quietly.
riddled with apocalyptic
Voices
warnings
stepped.
about
Sometimes
purifying
the
the
damn
next
lights would
generation.
flicker in rhythm.
He had been funneling
Ben
church
forced
money
the door
to families
open.
like the Harlans,
Inside, a
under the
mess
guise
of wires
home
snaked along the
sanctification.
walls. Old electrical
Glass
panels
murmured
hummed
aloud.
faintly.
They weren't
But
just
near the
hiding
far
these
corner,
kids.
Clara
They thought
spotted
they
a
were
small
saving
red
them.
light blinking steadily,
A cult
a live
or
camera
a
feed
cover.
indicator. She
A
followed the
psychological
wires to a
profiler
dusty
working with
rack of
Ellen
equipment.
posed a theory.
On the shelf sat
The
a modern
Harlans may
hard
not have
drive,
acted alone.
freshly installed,
Their actions,
unlike the rest of the
isolating
relics.
children,
Earl,
brainwashing
when's the
through
last
fear
time
and
anyone
obedience,
worked on this?
cutting
She
off
asked.
outside contact.
He blinked.
Were
No one's been
cult-like.
in here for years.
But there had
Ben
never been
unplugged
enough
the drive
members
and
or
bagged it.
outside structure
Someone's
to call
still
it an
recording.
official cult.
That night, back at
Still,
the precinct,
Ellen
Rory
began
managed to
mapping
access the
connections.
drive.
Another
Hundreds
family
of
in
video
Ohio,
files
connected to
appeared,
the same
sorted
church,
by date.
had
The
3
most
adopted
recent one
children
from 2 nights
vanished
ago.
from their records.
Play it, Clara said.
A nurse in Indiana
the footage
claimed
opened
she
on the
once
parking
treated
lot
a
again.
mute little red-headed
Rained
girl
just like before.
brought in under
Then
a fake name.
a police car pulled
around
into view.
1988.
Her breath caught.
A
It was their
retired
car.
mail carrier
The
remembered
timestamp
delivering
read the
dozens of
previous
unmarked
night,
envelopes
1
from the
a.m.
church.
The
to
video
special
showed Clara
households.
and Ben entering room
Could
7
it be that what
from a
happened in the
vantage
Harlan
point
house
across
was
the
part
street.
of a broader
The
system
camera
of hidden
followed them
placements?
silently, panning
A
as they
pipeline
moved.
that took vulnerable,
Ben swore
orphaned,
under
or
his
unwanted
breath.
children
How the hell?
and assigned them to
They
families
watched
under
themselves
religious
walk
cover.
into the room.
It
The
was
feed
impossible
cut
to
to
prove
static,
fully.
then resumed,
But there
now
were too
showing
many
the two of them
shadows to
sleeping
ignore.
in the motel beds.
Gregory's
Except
final
they
letter.
hadn't slept there. They'd left
prison,
hours before
Gregory
midnight.
Harlan began writing
Rory
letters,
paused the frame.
not to the court,
Wait,
not
look
to
in the
the media,
corner.
but to
Behind
Lily.
their sleeping figures, half
With her
shrouded in
permission,
darkness,
Ellen
stood
read
the
one
same
aloud to
tall
her during
shape,
a supervised
the same
session.
figure seen on the old Viz tapes.
Dear Lily,
Then, as
I
the
don't
footage
deserve your
played on,
forgiveness. Yes.
The figure turned
But I
toward
want
the
you to
camera.
know,
For the first time,
Rosie loved
its
you
face
more than
flickered into
anyone I've
clarity,
ever seen love
pale,
anything.
featureless,
She gave
except
up
for
everything
two
to
hollow
protect
eyes
you.
that reflected the lens
tried
like
to help.
glass. The
I didn't
figure
do
raised
enough.
its hand and
But
pointed
she-
directly at the camera.
She never gave
Then
up.
the video ended.
You are the
Silence.
proof that she won.
Ben rubbed his temples.
If the world ever
Someone's
tells
been
you you're
watching
broken,
us.
tell it
Clara's
this.
voice was low,
A girl
steady,
raised
but
in
cold.
darkness still
No,
found the light.
someone's been expecting us.
You are the light, Lily.
The next morning, the motel
so
sat
sorry.
under a fog so
Greg.
thick it erased the horizon.
Lily didn't cry.
The tape evidence was
She simply
loaded into
asked
secure
Ellen,
boxes.
"Can I write
the
back?"
rooms sealed off by
It was
police
the first
tape.
time she'd
But when
initiated
Clara
anything
walked
on
past
her
room
own.
7 one last time,
Public
she
reckoning.
noticed the door had been left
By
slightly ajar.
mid-2024,
On the
the case
nightstand
was
sat a
national
fresh
news again.
VHS tape,
A
unlabeled.
wave of lawsuits
She picked it
followed.
up, heart
Former social
pounding, and
workers
turned it
were
over.
subpoenaed.
On the back,
The
scrawled
state
in
of
shaky
Michigan faced a
handwriting,
class
were the
action
words,
lawsuit from victims
"Play
of
at
foster care
midnight."
abuse.
The motel was
The church's
officially
former
sealed as a
trustees were
crime scene
investigated
by the
for
time
financial
Clara and
conspiracy.
Ben returned the next morning.
Survivors
but that
from
didn't
other
stop the
placement
two
families
detectives
came
from
forward,
parking behind the
many of
forensic
them
vans
bearing
and
similar
slipping into
stories
the
of
main
hidden
office.
rooms,
The
isolation,
fog from the
and
early
spiritual
hours
abuse.
hadn't lifted. It
One
coiled
woman,
low
now
and thick around
52,
the building like
stood
smoke
before a
reluctant
press
to
podium
leave.
and said,
Earl Danner sat
thought
at
I
the
was the
desk,
only one.
staring blankly at the
But
wall
Rosie's
clock.
story
His coffee
showed me
was
I wasn't
cold,
crazy.
untouched.
I was just
"I ain't
hidden."
been able to sleep,"
The
he
Sunlight
murmured when they
Foundation
came
Lily,
in.
now
Every
in
time I
therapy
close my
full-time and
eyes,
working with a
I hear
ghostwriter,
that ringing again.
launched the Sunlight
phones.
Foundation,
I
a
unplugged
nonprofit
every damn one of
dedicated to
them, but they
investigating
still...
failed placements,
He broke off,
forgotten
rubbing his
foster
hands
children,
together.
and
Clara
unregulated home
crouched down in
adoptions.
front of him.
Its
"Earl, we
motto,
found a tape last night.
"No child left
Someone's been
unnamed."
watching you. Watching everyone
The
here."
foundation quickly
His
uncovered
eyes
3
twitched.
more children
"You
missing
think I
from
didn't
state
feel it?
records between
The rooms remember
1970
things,
and 1990.
detective. They
All
whisper
from
when
Michigan,
it's quiet enough."
all with ties
Ben
to closed
shot Clara
churches.
a look that said, "He's cracking."
One girl,
She
Angela
stood up,
M.,
calm but
was found
firm.
alive in
"We need
2025,
the original guest ledger.
living under a
The
false
old
name
one.
in northern
Before
Wisconsin.
the motel went digital.
She remembered
Where did you
Rosie.
keep it?" Earl blinked
gave
as
me
if
her
the
last
question
cookie.
jolted him awake.
Angela whispered in
"Ledger?
a recorded interview.
It's in the back office.
She said I'd
Been
get
there
out.
since the 80s.
I didn't believe her.
Nobody's looked at it in years.
Angela
He
escaped in
shuffled over
1985
to the small storeroom
by
behind
crawling
the
through a
desk.
coal chute
Dust
during a
motes
thunderstorm.
floated in the stale light
Her
from a
story
single
was buried
overhead
for
bulb.
decades.
On a metal shelf
Now
sat a
she,
stack
too,
of
would be
faded
heard.
blue logbooks.
Echoes,
Each one
the
had the
Harlan
motel's
farmhouse was
embossed
gone.
logo, Sunset
But a
View
3D
Inn,
model
flaking
built
off
for
the cover.
evidence was
Earl
displayed
ran
at the
a
Michigan
trembling
Museum
finger
of
along
Justice.
their spines before
Visitors
pulling out
could
the
walk
thickest
through
one.
the virtual
"This
recreation
one
of
covers
Rosie's room,
96
the
through
attic,
2010,
and even the tunnel
he said
Lily
softly.
used to escape.
After that, it all went to
At
computers.
the end of the exhibit,
Clara
guests
laid it open
stood
on the
before
counter.
a wall of names.
The pages were yellowed,
David
edges
DJ,
curled,
Maya
but
Carter,
the handwriting was
Timothy
precise
Lasker,
and neat.
Angela White,
Earl's
Emily
tidy script.
Stanton, Rosie
Names,
Harlan.
room numbers, and
now,
dates filled the
Angela
columns.
M., one
But
plaque
halfway
read,
through, something
"They were
changed.
hidden,
The
but
ink
not
turned
forgotten."
shaky, almost
And next
frantic.
to it, a
Guest
small
names
note in
repeated.
Rosie's handwriting,
Same people.
preserved from her
Same
diary.
handwriting over and over
If you
again.
find this,
"Ben,"
tell them I
Clara
was
said
real.
quietly, "look at this."
Despite the
same
mounting
woman,
evidence,
Diana
growing
Brooks,
media frenzy,
checked
and
in
national
6 times
outrage,
over 10 years.
one part of the Harlan
Always
story
room
remained
7.
elusive.
Same date,
What
March
happened
4th.
in the final weeks
Ben
before
frowned.
Rosie died?
What are the odds? Clara
diaries
flipped a
ended
few more
abruptly.
pages.
The tapes
More
grew
repetitions. Michael
and
Gage,
Rosie's
Anna
remains,
Holt,
while
Eric
found,
Farrow,
gave
all
little
recurring at
forensic
precise
insight beyond
intervals.
severe
It
malnutrition
wasn't possible.
and bone
These aren't
deterioration.
rebookings, Clara
So
muttered.
much of her life
They're
had been documented
placeholders.
in whispers,
Earl swallowed
faint
hard.
singing, scribbled
Those names, he hesitated.
memories sealed behind
They're all
drywall.
people who disappeared.
But the last days
Clara turned to him
were
sharply.
shadows.
"You recognize them?"
Until a janitor
He
from the
nodded
courthouse
slowly.
made a discovery.
"I remember their faces.
The black box
Friendly,
in
quiet.
a dusty supply
Never
closet
made a fuss.
beneath the Kalamazoo
And
County
after they
Archives
vanished,
building,
the names
behind a
just
false wall
kept
panel.
showing up again.
A maintenance worker
I figured I
named
must
Ron
have forgotten
Holloway
to flip
found
the
a locked
page when I was
briefcase.
copying
It
reservations
had no
over.
label.
But it kept
No
happening.
key.
Ben leaned
He
on the
almost
counter.
threw it away
"Who handled the books
until he
when you
shook
weren't
it
here, Earl?"
and heard something
He
rattle
hesitated.
inside.
"Used to be my nephew,
The sheriff's
Darryl.
department took
He helped
possession
me after my
and
wife
cracked it
passed.
open.
But Darryl left.
Inside was
What,
a digital
6 years ago
high-8
now?
camcorder.
Left.
Along with
Clara
it,
asked.
one final
Earl's
tape
eyes
labeled
darted toward the hallway.
1991.
Said he couldn't stand the
RH,
noise anymore.
Do not destroy.
What noise?
Rosie's
Earl
final
rubbed his
film.
temple.
The video
The
was
walls.
grainy.
Said
and the
he'd hear
battery almost
knocking
dead.
from inside them when he
But
tried
when
to
Glass
sleep.
viewed it,
They
in a
took the
sealed
ledger
room
to
with
the
no
AV
reporters,
lab for examination.
No agents, no noise.
Rory scanned the entries
The
and
entire course of
cross-referenced
the
them with missing
investigation
person
changed.
records. The results were
Rosie had
immediate
recorded
and
herself.
chilling. Every
Not
name
secretly,
matched an open case.
Not hurriedly.
37
but deliberately.
confirmed, Rory said.
She
Different
sat on the
years,
bed.
different states.
The same bed where
Some
her
from
bones
as
would
far
later
as
be
Oregon.
found.
Everyone
She was
listed
thinner
in this
than
book.
before.
Ben
Her hair hung
exhaled
limp over
sharply.
her shoulders.
This place
Her
is a
lips were cracked,
graveyard.
but her
Clara
eyes
tapped the
still
page.
defiant.
Except the handwriting's the
alive.
same year after year.
If you're watching
Earl's
this,
penmanship
I
didn't
guess you
change
found
much,
me.
but the
Or
tone,
what's left of me.
it's like someone imitating
coughed.
him.
This is my
Rory
truth.
nodded.
No lies.
And check this
no
out.
whispers.
See these
Just
faint
me.
marks beside each
The
name?
confession.
He zoomed
Rosie
in
spoke
on the digital
slowly,
scan.
clearly.
Tiny
She began by naming
indentations
every
barely
child she
visible to
remembered,
the naked eye,
one by one.
like someone
David,
pressing
Maya,
the tip of a
Timothy,
pen
Angela,
too hard.
Emily, Lily.
Their dates, Rory said,
She told their stories
all
as
roughly
best she
5
could.
years apart.
How each
almost
came into
like
the house,
renewal
what they were
dates.
like, and how they suffered.
Clara's brow furrowed.
Then she spoke about Sarah.
Renewal of what? He shrugged.
Sarah said we
you
were
tell
sinners.
me. Back
God
at the
wanted us
motel,
broken.
the air grew colder
said
as
pain
the
was how we
afternoon
paid for
sank
being
into
born.
evening. The fog
I
had
tried to
rolled
protect
back
them.
in,
I really
thicker
did.
now, muting
But
the
I wasn't
world
strong
into
enough.
gray silence.
Except for
Clara
Lily.
sat in room
She
7 with
smiled
the
weakly.
ledger open across her
She
lap.
still believes in
Ben
stars.
stood by the window, smoking despite the
turning
no
point.
smoking sign. There's a
Then Rosie
pattern,
said something
Clara
Glass
said.
hadn't expected.
Every 5 years, someone
lied to Sarah.
vanishes from this room.
She
And
thought
every
I was
time,
dying
a
faster
new
than I
name
was.
gets added to the
So
ledger.
I faked the shaking.
Ben
the
flicked
coughing.
ash into a paper
I made
cup.
my voice hoarse.
Could be ritualistic.
I wanted
Someone
her to stop
treating the
watching
ledger
so
like a
closely.
record book for offerings.
And it worked.
Clara nodded, distracted.
Sarah stopped feeding
Maybe,
Rosie.
but look at
Thought
this.
she was near death.
She pointed to the
Shifted
final
her
entry.
attention.
Earl Danner,
Rosie
room
used
7,
that time to
March
coach Lily.
4th, 2023.
I told her how to
Ben
find
froze.
the tunnel behind the dresser.
That's this year.
I told her to
And the
listen for
date the
wind.
Thompsons vanished,
I told her not
Clara
to cry,
said.
no matter
but
what.
Earl didn't stay here.
And then I
He
told her
owns the
something I
place.
never said out loud
A cold
before.
realization dawned between them.
She looked into the camera.
Someone was rewriting the ledger,
loved her.
preemptively assigning victims
last
before the
goodbye.
disappearances even happened.
The tape
Earl
ended
appeared
with
in the
Rosie
doorway,
placing the
his
camera
face
on the
pale
floor
and
walking
drawn.
slowly to the wall.
Detective Vale?
There
You
she
might
wrote
want
a
to see
final
this.
message in chalk.
He led them to
Tell
the
the
small
truth.
maintenance office near
Don't
the
look
back
away.
of the property.
Not this
Inside
time.
was a corkboard lined
Then she
with
lay
faded
down.
Polaroids,
Not in
each
defeat.
one pinned beneath a
peace.
yellowed note.
The hidden
Clara's
file.
stomach twisted. Every
Also
photo
inside the
matched a
briefcase
name in
was
the
a
ledger,
USB drive.
and beneath
It
each
contained
Polaroid,
scanned
a
documents.
small note was
Files
written in the
Glass
same
recognized
looping script.
immediately as internal
They
police
stayed
memos
where they
from
belonged.
1983.
Ben's jaw tightened.
One in particular made
Who
her
wrote
go cold.
these? Earl
Two.
shook his head.
Deputy
Not
Charles
me.
Lenning from
I found him in
Sergeant
the office
Howard
years
Ellison.
ago.
You are to
Figured
drop
they
the
were
Harlan
part of the
follow-up.
motel's history.
They've got eyes on
Didn't
the board.
have the heart to
and
throw
the
them
Reverend
away.
says it's a sacred
Clara
matter.
leaned closer.
Burn the notes.
You said your
This
nephew
stays
used to
buried.
help around here, right?
So it had been
Daryl?
systemic.
Earl nodded
The silencing
warily.
wasn't lazy.
When's the last time you
was
spoke to
intentional.
him? About 6
Lily's
years.
voice.
He just stopped answering
When Lily
his
was
phone.
shown the final tape,
I figured he left
she
town.
didn't cry.
Clara picked up
placed
one of
her
the
hand on the
Polaroids
screen
near
and
the bottom
whispered.
corner of the board.
She didn't say
Her
goodbye.
pulse quickened.
She
It
said,
showed
"Tell
Daryl,
the truth."
standing in front of room
It
7.
was the longest sentence
smiling.
she'd spoken
On the
all
back of
year.
the photo was a date.
With her
March
therapist,
4th,
she began
2017.
recording audio journals.
The same night the
Not to
Thompsons
remember,
disappeared.
but to testify.
That night, they drove out to
She gave
Daryl
permission
Danner's
for one
last
of
known
them to
address,
be played at
a
Sarah
cabin
Harlan's
deep in the
trial.
woods outside Ashgrove.
The trial.
The place was deserted.
In the summer of
Windows
2025,
boarded.
Sarah
weeds
Harlan
growing
stood
through the
before
steps.
the court.
Ben kicked the
Pale,
door open.
gaunt,
You
her white
smell
hair
that?
pinned up like a
The
shell
air
of her
was
former
musty,
self.
heavy with decay.
The trial lasted
Inside,
4 weeks.
the walls were lined
Dozens
with
of
old
witnesses
photo
testified.
frames.
The
Some
tapes were
contained
played.
smiling
The
faces of
dollhouse
guests.
was presented.
Others were empty.
The room was
In
reconstructed
the living room,
photos.
a dusty reel-to-reel
And then the
tape
jury heard
recorder
Lily's
sat on a
recording.
table.
Her
Clara
voice,
hit the play button.
still childlike,
A man's voice
described the
crackled
walls,
through,
the
trembling
hunger,
and strained.
the lullabies,
I tried
and
to stop
Rosie's
it.
final days.
I swear to God I tried.
When the
But it
recording
keeps
ended,
calling.
silence
Through the
filled
phones,
courtroom.
through the walls.
Even
Every
the
time
bailiff
that
cried.
clock hits 1, it
The
starts
verdict
again.
on September
The
2nd,
guests don't leave, they answer back.
2025.
There
The
was
jury
a pause,
returned.
then the sound of
Guilty
faint knocking.
on all counts.
3 times. If anyone
Sarah was
finds
sentenced
this,
to
don't
7
stay in
consecutive
room
life
7.
sentences
Don't
without
listen when it
parole.
rings.
She
It's
showed
not a
no
person
emotion.
on the line.
But as
It's
she
the
was led
house.
away,
The tape
she turned
ended
back
with a
and muttered
long
one
hiss
word.
of static. By the time
Unclean.
they returned to the motel, the power
Ellen
had
Glass
flickered
turned her
twice.
back on her.
The forensics
She had
crew
no
had
interest
gone for
in
the night,
monsters clinging
leaving
to false
only
faith.
silence. Clara
legacy
stood in the
grows.
lobby
Rosie's final
staring at the
message,
open ledger,
"Don't look
which
away,"
now rested under a
became a
protective
rallying
cover.
cry.
She
It was
froze when
printed
she
on
saw
T-shirts,
something new.
murals,
The page
protest
had turned.
signs,
A
advocacy
fresh entry
handbooks.
had appeared beneath the
The
last.
Sunlight Foundation
Clara
saw
Vale,
a 300%
Room 7,
increase in
October
volunteer
6,
investigators.
2025.
And Lily,
Her hand trembled as she
spoke
touched
at a
the
children's
ink.
justice
It was
summit
still
in
wet.
Chicago.
Ben looked over her
final
shoulder.
words,
His face
"I was
drained of
raised in
color.
darkness.
That's today.
But darkness
Before
didn't
either
raise
could
me."
move, the phone
Rosie
behind
did.
the counter rang.
By fall
One
of
single chime,
2025,
then another.
the legal battle
Earl's
had ended.
voice wavered. That
Sarah
line's
Harlan
not
was
connected.
imprisoned.
Clara
The Harlan
stared
name,
at the blinking
once
light.
shielded by community
It flashed in
reverence,
time time with the
had
clock
become
on the wall.
synonymous with
The second
generational
hand
evil.
ticked over, 12:59.
Rosie's story had made
1
global
o'clock.
headlines,
The ringing
inspiring
stopped.
reform,
The silence after was
investigations,
absolute.
and a reckoning.
Then, faintly,
But
from
Detective
somewhere
Ellen
deep
Glass
within the
couldn't
motel,
rest.
came the sound of the
Something
same
still gnawed
lullaby,
at her.
the one from the tapes.
There was a name
So,
Rosie mentioned
wordless,
in her diary.
calling from room 7.
Maya.
The morning sun
girl
did
said to have
nothing to
lived in the
warm the
house
chill that
only a few
hung over
months.
the Sunset View
Yet there
motel.
were no records,
Even as
no
light
body,
bled through the
no
torn
clue where she
curtains
had
and
gone.
flickered across the empty
All the
parking
other
lot,
children's
the air
remains had
seemed
been accounted
stale,
for,
as if the building
except
itself
hers.
refused to exhale.
The hint in the
Detective
garden.
Evelyn Hart stood in the corridor
One day,
between rooms
while reviewing
8
the
and
digital
10,
model of
her
the farmhouse
gloved
for a
hand
museum
pressed against
exhibit,
the peeling
Glass
wallpaper.
noticed something
"It's
strange,
strongest here,"
a discrepancy
she
in the
murmured,
satellite
eyes
imagery
narrowing.
from
"You smell
1984
that?"
compared
Sergeant
to more
Drew
recent
Keller
drone footage.
nodded reluctantly.
A
The
cluster
odor
of
was
trees
impossible
that had
to
been
ignore.
alive in the
Sweet at
1980s,
first, like
just
rotting
behind the
fruit,
old barn,
but with an undertone
had
of
all
decay
died off
that
by
caught
the
in
late
the throat.
2000s.
It had started faintly the day
Arborists
before,
had
a
speculated
passing
about blight
stench
or
everyone
drought.
blamed on stagnant
Glass
plumbing
saw a
or
pattern.
dead wildlife
The
beneath the
trees had
structure.
formed a
But
perfect
by
circle,
this morning, it was
a ring of
unmistakable.
rot. The orchard
Evelyn
that
crouched
wasn't
and
she
ran a gloved
assembled
hand
a
along
team
the
and
carpet
returned
seen by
to
the
the Harlan
baseboard.
property.
"Get the
Now
maintenance guy,"
state-owned and
she
sealed for
ordered,
preservation.
"and make sure we have
They brought
masks
cadaver
before we
dogs.
start pulling anything up."
One dog stopped,
The motel's
then
owner,
another.
Tom
At the
Latham,
base of a
appeared
twisted
moments
apple
later,
tree.
pale and sweaty.
Digging began
"Detective,
immediately.
I swear, we've
Within a
had
few
animals
hours,
crawl
they
in the
hit
vents
wood,
before.
and beneath
Could
that,
be a raccoon
bones.
or..." Evelyn
Maya had
shot
been
him a
buried
sharp
standing
look.
upright,
"Tom, if
wrapped
this
in
is
a
just
floral
an animal,
bedsheet,
we'll find out
arms
soon enough."
folded over her chest.
"But if it's not..."
Her skull
She
was
didn't
cracked.
finish the sentence.
The most
She
chilling
didn't
detail?
have to. They began
She was holding
carefully
something
cutting
in her
through the old
hands.
wallpaper and
A photo of
baseboards.
Sarah
Beneath
as a
the
teenager,
plaster was rot,
with the words,
dark,
"You
wet
promise,"
streaks of decay
scribbled
that
in
had
red
been
crayon on the
festering for
back.
years. The further
The
they
forgotten
peeled,
girl
the
Maya
worse
Carter
the smell
had been
became,
removed from her
until
mother's
even Keller
custody in
gagged through his
1982
mask.
following reports
"Jesus,"
of abuse.
he muttered, stepping
She'd been
back.
placed in emergency
"That's not
housing.
an animal."
Paperwork
Something
incomplete.
wet dripped from the wall
And then
cavity. Evelyn's
lost.
flashlight beam caught the edge of something
Her birth
inside.
mother died by overdose in
Flesh-colored,
1984.
wrinkled like old leather.
There was no one
"Stop,"
left to look for
she
her.
said sharply. "No
Rosie
one
had
touch
written
anything."
about her once.
Crime scene
Maya
technicians
smiled
moved
even
in,
when it hurt.
pulling away
She
sections
said
of
Sarah was
plasterboard.
her angel.
What emerged was
I
a
told her
sight no
angels
one had
don't
been
lock
prepared
doors.
for. A cavity,
And now,
roughly 6
Maya
feet
was
tall
found,
and 4 feet wide,
43
hidden
years too
behind
late.
room 9's wall.
Her body was
Inside,
exhumed with
curled
care,
into the space like
and
a
buried
doll
next
in a
to
box,
Rosie in a new
was the
memorial garden
mummified
behind
body
the
of a
museum.
woman. Her hair was
Visitors
brittle
left
and
paper
gray, her
sunflowers
jaw
at her
slacked
headstone.
open. The remains
The
were
anonymous
clothed in what
envelope
looked like
weeks
an
later.
old motel-made uniform,
received
the
an
tag
envelope.
still faintly visible.
No return
Sunset
address.
View, staff only.
Inside was a
Keller
photograph.
cursed under his breath.
A group of children
Jesus
sitting
Christ.
on a worn wooden floor.
Evelyn leaned closer,
At the center was
noting the
Rosie,
position of the
holding a
bones,
younger Lily.
the way the wrists were bound
Maya
with
stood
frayed
behind them.
electrical wire.
David
"She
crouched
didn't
at the
crawl in
side.
here," she said
The
quietly.
photo was decades
"She was
old.
put here,
On the
and
back,
whoever did it
a
wanted her to
handwritten
stay
message.
hidden."
There
The
were
room
more.
fell silent except
Glass's
for the
heart
hum of
pounded.
the fluorescent
She
light
called in
overhead.
every archivist,
"Get the coroner
digital
down
forensic
here,"
analyst,
Evelyn
and
ordered,
photographic expert
and
she
someone
knew.
call the forensic
Together, they
anthropologist
enhanced
in
the
Ashgrove.
photo.
"We're going to need
In the
them."
background,
2
half
hours
shadow,
later, the small
stood two
parking
other
lot of the
children,
Sunset View was a
a boy
hive of
and a girl.
activity. Crime scene
Unnamed,
vans, county
unknown.
sheriff cars, a few news
Glass had
trucks
never seen them
circling at a
before.
distance.
A secret
Evelyn stood
network?
under the overhang of room
She
9,
reviewed all state
watching as
placements
Tex
from
carried out the
1975
sealed
to
body bag.
1985.
Keller joined her, flipping
Cross-referenced
through a
every
clipboard.
missing child
Preliminary
with ties to
assessment
religious
says
foster
she's been in
homes
there
or
for at least
unlicensed
15,
adoptions.
maybe 20 years.
She searched
The
through
uniforms
closed
from a
churches
supplier
and
that went
defunct
out
youth
of business
programs.
in 2004.
The trail led her to
Evelyn
a small
nodded
abandoned
slowly.
church in western
So she was
Pennsylvania.
staff. Probably
There,
worked here
in
when
the
the
rubble of a
original owners
collapsed
ran the
prayer hall,
place.
She found
Keller
something
lowered his
horrifying.
voice. "You think this could be
A wooden
connected to
chest
the ledger?"
identical to the one
Earlier
David
in the
had been
week,
buried in.
they'd found a battered
Inside,
notebook in the motel's office.
child's dress,
pages full of
a lock of
handwritten
red hair,
names and dates.
and a photograph.
The odd part? None of
Rosie
the
again.
names matched official
But this
motel
time,
records.
she was not
Some
in
of
the
them
Harlan
had
house.
tiny marks beside
This
them.
wasn't a single
An
house of
X,
horrors.
a circle,
It was a
or
network.
nothing at all.
The
latest
reopened
entry,
files, by
dated
winter of
2010,
2025,
had a red underline.
over 19
room
cold
9.
cases from Michigan,
Evelyn's
Ohio, and
eyes
Pennsylvania
lingered on the
were
boarded-up
reopened.
windows. "I think
Children
it's
who
all
had
connected.
run away.
The ledger,
Records
the tapes,
mysteriously
the graves, they're threads
Families
in the
told
same
to
web.
move on.
And room 9 is
Rosie's
the center.
story had cracked open
By
a regional
mid-afternoon,
conspiracy
the
of
coroner,
forgotten
Dr.
children,
Lane Pierce,
taken
was
under the
kneeling
guise
by
of
the wall
morality and
cavity.
faith.
"It's a
hidden
woman,
from the world,
late 30s to
and in some
mid-40s,
cases,
he said. "Time
discarded.
of death's impossible to pin down exactly. exactly,
Sunlight
but
Foundation
yeah, 15
expanded
to 20
overnight.
years sounds about right.
A new division,
The way
the
she's
Orchard
positioned,
Task Force,
arms
was formed,
crossed, back
led by
arched,
Glass.
it's consistent with
Their mission,
confinement.
trace
Evelyn
every
crouched
shred of
beside him.
documentation
Any cause
tied
of
to the
death?
rogue child
Still
placement
too
network,
early, he
believed
replied.
to have operated
But
from
he pointed
1971
toward the base
to
of the skull.
1993.
There's evidence of
and they had a
trauma,
new lead.
blunt force,
The man
possibly a
in the
hammer or
photograph.
wrench. You'll get
In the newly
confirmation after
discovered
I clean
photo,
the remains.
just barely visible
She
in the
exhaled
background,
through her nose.
stood an adult
Do we
figure.
have dental records from the
Male,
old staff?
Wearing a long
Keller
coat,
flipped through his notepad.
hand on Rosie's shoulder.
Latham's digging them up.
Digital enhancement
Said a woman
revealed
named
his
Lydia
face.
Hale went missing
He
back
wasn't
in
Walter
06.
Harlan. He
She
wasn't
worked the
Pastor
front
Rusk.
desk nights,
He was
sometimes helped
unknown,
with cleaning.
a stranger.
Evelyn glanced toward the
And
office.
yes,
Hale,
when Glass ran
that name's
facial
in the ledger.
recognition through old
Inside
DMV
the
and
motel's
security
cramped
archives,
front office,
one
Tom
hit came
Latham
up.
was trembling as he
Reverend
handed over
Paul
a box
Myers,
of yellowed
a
paperwork.
former pastor
I
of a
didn't know,
Pentecostal
he
branch
stammered.
shut down in
I
1994
bought this place cheap after the bank
suspected tax
foreclosed.
fraud.
They said the
He had
old
vanished.
owners just vanished.
Never arrested,
Who were they?
never found.
Evelyn asked.
Until
Harold
now.
and Cora Benton,
The
Tom
hunt
said.
begins.
Married couple.
The
Retired,
FBI
I think.
joined the
Harold
investigation
died
in
of a
early
heart attack
2026.
10 years ago, out
They
in
dubbed
Florida.
it Operation Hidden Quiet.
I don't know.
Targeting
She was
the
declared
suspected
missing in
underground child relocation
2015.
network,
Evelyn
disguised as
exchanged a
spiritual
look with Keller.
sanctuaries.
2 owners, both gone.
Glass was appointed
An employee
special
missing.
consultant.
Hidden walls
Lily
full
gave
of bodies.
permission to share
Doesn't
portions of
seem
her
like
story for the
coincidence.
nationwide campaign.
Keller flipped open the ledger again.
At a press conference,
Near the middle of the book,
Glass spoke
beneath
with
a
a
list of
trembling
guest
voice.
names, was a different
thought
kind
this
of note,
case ended at the
scribbled
Harlan
and
house.
shaky.
We were wrong.
No one stays
It
forever.
didn't end there.
Some just stay
It began
behind.
there.
That night,
A candle for
Evelyn
Rosie.
couldn't shake the smell from her
Back
hair.
in Kalamazoo,
It clung to her
people
like
left
guilt.
candles along the
She
fence
sat
line
alone
where the
in her
Harlan
car,
house once
parked
stood.
at the edge of the motel's lot.
Children
the
wrote
windows
Rosie
rolled
letters.
down. The
One
place
note
looked
written in
almost
a child's
peaceful in the
crayon
moonlight.
read,
Neon,
"Dear
vacancy,
Rosie,
sign
I wish you
flickering,
were my sister.
wind chimes whispering from the
Thank you
office
for
door.
saving Lily.
But something about
Thank
room
you for
9
being
drew her
brave.
attention again and
I
again.
love you."
The plastic yellow tape
Glass
fluttered
read
in the
it
wind,
and tucked it
the
into her
doorway
notebook.
sealed, yet she swore
Some
she
cases
saw
never
movement
leave you.
behind the blinds,
And some
a
names
faint flicker, like someone
carry
pacing.
forever.
She got out, flashlight in hand, and approached slowly. Her boots crunched against gravel. The closer she got, the heavier the air felt, humid, sour. She shined the beam against the cracked window pane. Nothing. But then, from inside, she heard it. A click. Not loud, but distinct. The sound of a light switch. Her pulse quickened. The electricity to that room had been cut hours ago. "Hello," she called out softly. No response. She tried the handle out of instinct. It didn't move, sealed tight. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the glass. Another click. And then, faintly, a voice. "Check in." Evelyn froze. It was female. Soft, almost melodic. She stepped back, fumbling for her radio. "Keller, you still on site?" "Yeah, wrapping up evidence." "What's up?" "I need you at room 9. Now." The radio crackled. "Copy that." When Keller arrived a minute later, the light inside room 9 was gone. Evelyn stood rigid, still staring through the window. "What is it?" he asked. She hesitated before answering. Someone, or something, just spoke from inside. A woman. Keller looked skeptical. "No one's in there, Tuppy. It's sealed." "I know what I heard." He sighed, motioning toward the door. "You want me to break it open?" She shook her head. "No, leave it for now. We'll check first thing tomorrow, when we've got a full team." They started walking back toward the office, but Evelyn glanced over her shoulder one last time. Through the slats of the blinds, a faint orange glow had returned, barely there, but pulsing softly, like the beat of a dying heart. The next morning, the motel was quiet again. Too quiet. When Keller arrived with the evidence team, the first thing they noticed was the smell. It was stronger than before, fresh, acrid, and new. The yellow tape over room 9's door had been ripped clean away. The lock was gone, and inside, sitting neatly on the bed, was a small box. Evelyn stared at it from the doorway. It was wooden, old, carved with the same insignia that had appeared on the motel ledger's cover, an engraved S looping through a crescent moon. She opened it slowly. Inside was a Polaroid photograph. It showed room 9, this same room, taken from the doorway. The bed, the nightstand, the window. And standing in the corner, staring at the camera with hollow eyes, was the woman they had found behind the wall. Her name scrawled in ink on the bottom edge. Lydia Hale, check-in complete. The air in room 9 felt different that morning. Dense, like a cellar after the rain. Even the sunlight creeping through the cracked blinds couldn't cut through the smell of mildew and something else, something that reminded Evelyn of basements and blood. The small wooden box sat on the nightstand, the Polaroid still inside, its edges curling with age. Keller stood by the doorway, trying not to look directly at it. "You're sure no one came in overnight?" he asked. Evelyn nodded. No signs of forced entry. Security cameras on every corner, all untouched. She gestured to the photo. "And yet that box wasn't here when we sealed the room last night." The motel's new owner, Tom Latham, hovered behind them, wringing his hands. "You're saying someone broke in, left that thing, and left again?" "But the police tape was ripped off cleanly," Keller interrupted. "Whoever did it knew where to go and what to leave behind." Evelyn's gaze drifted to the far wall, the same wall where Lydia Hale's body had been entombed. The plaster had been stripped, the frame exposed. Behind it, faint drafts of cool air whispered through a gap in the foundation. "That's not just wall space," she said, crouching down. "There's airflow coming from behind it. Keller, hand me the flashlight." He passed it over, and she angled the beam into the narrow gap. Dust floated like ash in the cone of light. The beam caught on something metallic, corrugated steel, the edge of a door or vent cover. "Looks like a maintenance shaft," Keller said, crouching beside her. "No," Evelyn replied. "The motel's blueprints didn't show any shafts here. This wasn't part of the design." She brushed away more plaster until a small rectangular panel came into view. It was bolted shut, the screws rusted almost smooth with age. On the corner, a faint engraving was visible beneath the grime. "Authorized entry only, Benton, 1996. Keller whistled low. "Harold Benton, the original owner." Evelyn stood up. "Get me a drill and some gloves. We're opening it." By noon, the maintenance crew had removed the rusted bolts. With a groan of metal and a puff of stale air, the panel swung open, revealing a dark passageway leading down at a steep angle. A wet smell drifted out, earthy, chemical. "Jesus," Keller muttered, covering his nose. "That's not fresh air." Evelyn adjusted her flashlight. "Grab masks and backup lights. We're going in." Tom Latham backed away immediately. "You're not seriously—" "We are," she cut him off. "If this place is hiding something else, I'm not leaving it sealed another night." The tunnel was narrow enough that they had to crouch. The walls were lined with concrete, but water had seeped through over the years, leaving streaks of rust and moss. Electrical conduit ran along the ceiling, the kind used decades ago. Keller's voice echoed softly. "Feels like a service corridor. Maybe connects to the generator." Evelyn shook her head. "The motel's generator is in the front utility shed. This runs in the opposite direction, back toward the woods." They kept moving. The air grew colder the further they went. Every few feet, the flashlight beam caught glimpses of forgotten debris, old cleaning supplies, broken radios, even a typewriter with the keys rusted stuck. Then, about 20 yards in, Keller stopped. "Hold up. What's that smell?" Evelyn smelled it too, a copper tang mixed with something foul. They turned the corner and froze. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, roughly the size of a single motel room, but the walls were covered in photographs. Hundreds of them. Polaroids, nailed in rows, curling from dampness. Each one showed a different guest standing outside their motel door, smiling. Some had dates scrawled in red pen. Others were marked with tiny X's in the corner. Keller took a step closer, scanning the faces. "These go back years, maybe decades." Evelyn moved her beam across the wall until it stopped on a familiar face. Room 7. The missing family. The Millers. The photo showed them smiling in front of their car, the same one found abandoned behind the building. A red X cut through their faces. "Oh my God," Keller breathed. They were being catalogued. Evelyn turned toward the back of the chamber. There, sitting on an old workbench, was a tape recorder, dusty but intact. She pressed play. For a moment, only static filled the air. Then a man's voice, muffled and calm. "Guest log, April 12, 2006. Room 9 maintenance complete. Lydia non-compliant. Reassignment approved by Cora. Note, the new tunnel extension finished. Test successful. Continue operations." The tape clicked off. "Reassignment," Keller repeated. "What the hell does that mean?" Evelyn's jaw clenched. "It means Lydia found something she wasn't supposed to." They continued deeper. The tunnel curved again, descending into what looked like a second chamber, smaller, darker. The concrete ended here, replaced by packed earth and rotting wood beams. Keller shined his light ahead. Looks like it was dug by hand. Or extended, Evelyn said, after the motel was built. At the far end of the tunnel was a wooden door with an old motel key hanging from a nail beside it. The tag read, Room 9. Evelyn reached for it. The key was cold, damp with condensation. She slid it into the lock and turned. The door creaked open. What lay beyond made both detectives stop breathing. The room was lined with shelving units, each filled with personal belongings, purses, wallets, watches, driver's licenses, children's toys. Everything labeled and sorted in neat boxes with handwritten tags. Guest 42, 1998. Guest 77, 2001. Guest 108, 2006. There were more than 100 boxes. Keller whispered, This is like a trophy room. Evelyn nodded slowly. No, it's an archive. She pulled one box from the shelf and opened it. Inside was a woman's handbag, a photo ID, Lydia Hale, and a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully. It was a note written in shaky handwriting. He says we serve a purpose. He says the motel remembers. They spent the next hour cataloging the items while forensics called for backup. Keller found a stack of old Polaroids under a tarp. You need to see this. He handed her the top photo. It showed the Bentons, the original owners, standing in front of the motel during its grand opening. Harold, smiling proudly, had his arm around Cora. Behind them, the neon sign blazed bright and new. But written in marker on the back were 6 words. The house listens when it's fed. Evelyn frowned. Fed? Before Keller could answer, a low rumble echoed through the tunnel. Dust fell from the ceiling. Earth shift, Keller said, bracing himself. But the rumble turned rhythmic, mechanical, a hum. It was coming from behind the walls. They exchanged a glance and followed the sound back toward the first chamber. The hum grew louder, steady, pulsing almost like breathing. The tape recorder clicked on again, by itself. Guest cycle complete. Prepare for next intake. Static drowned out the rest. Evelyn grabbed the recorder, yanking the batteries out, but the hum didn't stop. It grew sharper, vibrating through the floor. Keller whispered, We need to get out. But Evelyn wasn't ready to leave. Something in her gut told her this tunnel wasn't finished revealing itself. She scanned the chamber once more, and noticed something she'd missed before. Behind the wall of Polaroids was a seam. She moved closer, running her hand along the concrete. The seam wasn't random, it was a hidden doorway. Help me with this, she said. They pushed against the wall until a section of it groaned open, swinging inward on rusted hinges. Beyond was a vertical shaft, like an old elevator tunnel, descending into pitch-black darkness. Keller swallowed. You think this goes under the property? Evelyn nodded. Or somewhere worse. She dropped a glow stick inside. It fell for several seconds before hitting the bottom with a hollow clang. Far below, something moved. A whisper, soft and almost human, drifted up through the darkness. Check-in complete. Evelyn's blood ran cold. She took a step back as Keller pulled her by the arm. We're sealing this off. Now. They hurried back through the tunnel, the hum still echoing behind them. As they reached the panel leading into room 9, Keller slammed it shut and drove the bolts back in place. The moment it sealed, the hum stopped. The silence that followed felt like a held breath finally released. Evelyn leaned against the wall, her heartbeat thundering in her chest. We'll bring in ground-penetrating radar tomorrow, she said. I want to know how deep that shaft goes. Keller nodded, still catching his breath. And if it's connected to anything else. Evelyn looked around the ruined room one last time. The broken plaster, the hanging wires, the Polaroid of Lydia Hale still on the nightstand. Her eyes settled on the inscription carved into the back of the wooden box they'd found earlier. She hadn't noticed it before. Under the flickering light, the words were faint but clear. The house remembers what the living forget. She shivered, because in her gut, she knew the motel wasn't done remembering. And somewhere beneath their feet, in the dark, The next guest had already checked in. Detective Harris had never seen the Hollow Creek Motel so quiet. Even when the highway outside was dead, the place seemed to hum, an invisible vibration in the walls, like the building itself was alive and waiting. But now, as he stood outside room 9, the only thing he could hear was the soft, rhythmic dripping from a leaky pipe somewhere deep inside the crawl space. They had sealed off the tunnel hours ago. Forensics was inside cataloging what they could, but there was something else, something Harris couldn't shake. The night manager's last words echoed in his mind. "There's a room you can't rent here. Don't ask why. You won't like the answer." Room 9 was supposed to be the last on the strip. But when Harris looked at the blueprints of the motel, there was another rectangle right behind it. No number, no window, no entry. It was a room without a door. Detective Rena Delgado joined him, flashlight in hand. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but there was a spark there too. A quiet, grim excitement that came when you knew you were close to something horrible and true. "Structural plans from 1973, she said, tapping the folded paper. "This section right here, between rooms 9 and 11, should be a maintenance closet. But the dimensions don't add up. It's larger, much larger." Harris looked up at the corridor's stained ceiling tiles. "You think there's another room inside the wall?" Delgado's beam cut across the plaster. "I think someone built it that way for a reason." They moved into room 9. The air still smelled of mold and something else. Something coppery and rotten, like blood and bleach fighting for dominance. A thin layer of chalk dust from the broken plaster coated everything. The walls were scarred with years of damage. Nail holes, gouges, and one large section that looked like it had been patched repeatedly. Delgado ran her gloved hand across the surface. "This part's been replaced at least 3 times. Different materials, different decades." Harris knelt, pressing his ear against the wall. Nothing. Then, barely audible, a hollow thud, followed by the creak of shifting air. He jerked back. "There's space behind this." Delgado didn't hesitate. "We're opening it." It took them 15 minutes to clear the furniture and peel away the wallpaper. The plaster underneath crumbled easily, like it had been waiting to give way. Beneath it was a thin layer of plywood, painted to blend in. Harris used his crowbar to pry at the seam. The first crack sounded like a sigh. Then a narrow gap appeared, revealing pitch blackness beyond. The smell that poured out was unbearable, wet, sour, and unmistakably organic. Delgado gagged and pulled her shirt over her nose. "God, that's been sealed for decades." They widened the opening, revealing a small void, barely 4 feet deep at first glance. But the flashlight beam showed more. The space opened into a narrow corridor lined with faded insulation and rotted wood paneling. It wasn't a maintenance closet. It was a passage. Inside, the air was colder. Their lights illuminated markings on the walls, names, numbers, and scratch marks etched into the paint. One name repeated over and over. Henderson. Delgado whispered, the same name from the 1985 missing persons report. "Yeah," Harris said quietly. "She disappeared off Highway 12. Last seen at this motel." The deeper they went, the more the corridors seemed to bend and compress. The smell intensified, but it wasn't just decay. It was chemical too, like cleaning solution and ammonia used to cover something worse. At the end of the passage was a solid wooden panel, the same faded green as the rest of the motel's walls. It had no handle. Delgado pointed. "That's it. The room with no door." They called in a forensic team to document before breaching, but Harris couldn't wait. He felt a pull, a sense that if they didn't open it right now, whatever was behind there would vanish into rumor again, just like it had for 50 years. He lifted the crowbar again. Delgado steadied the flashlight. 1 hit. 2 hits. The wood splintered. 3 hits, and the panel gave way, revealing darkness deeper than the passage itself. The stench that followed was overwhelming. Harris stepped inside first. His boots sank slightly into a damp carpet. The beam of his flashlight wavered, catching glimpses of what looked like a bedroom. Only everything inside was decades out of time. A twin bed with a faded pink comforter. A vanity mirror, cracked and spotted. A rotary phone, still connected to the wall. Everything was coated in dust except for one thing: the bed. Its sheets were disturbed, the pillow dented. Someone had been here recently. Delgado's light caught something on the far wall, a message scrawled in what looked like charcoal. "He still has the key." The letters slanted downward, hurried and desperate. "Jesus," Delgado whispered. "Who's he?" Harris walked toward the vanity. On it sat a small pile of personal items: a lipstick tube, a comb, a motel matchbook, and a Polaroid photograph curling at the edges. He picked it up. The image showed a young woman, early 20s, brunette, smiling nervously in front of the motel office. Behind her, a man's hand rested on her shoulder, but the man himself was cut off by the edge of the frame. Only his uniform sleeve and a brass button were visible. Harris felt his stomach twist. The sleeve looked identical to an old Hollow Creek motel uniform, the same type worn by the original night manager, Leonard Brewer, who'd gone missing himself in 1982. Delgado turned to the corner. "Harris, there's a vent here." She crouched, shining her light into a rusted grate near the floor. Something glimmered inside, metal, stained red-brown. She used a gloved hand to pull it out. It was a key ring, a motel master key ring. Every number was there, from 1 to 12. Every number except 9. Harris's pulse quickened. So that's what "he still has the key" means. Whoever did this, he never left. Delgado looked toward the wall. Or someone else took over. There was a noise then, faint but unmistakable. A single creak, like someone stepping on an old floorboard outside the panel they'd entered through. Harris froze. Delgado's hand went to her holster. They waited. Another sound. This time closer, soft breathing, uneven, just beyond the opening. Harris switched off his flashlight. The only illumination came from Delgado's narrow beam, trembling slightly in her hand. For a full minute, there was nothing. Then, a whisper, low, raspy, and almost childlike. "You shouldn't have opened it." Delgado spun, light cutting across the wall, but the passage was empty. Only the stale air moved. "Who's there?" she shouted. No answer. Just a faint scraping sound, receding down the tunnel. They backed out fast, sealing the opening behind them. But the motel felt different now, heavier, like something in the walls had shifted awake. Outside, as dawn began to pale the horizon, Harris stood beside the squad car, staring at the crumbling facade of the building. "Think it was Brewer?" Delgado asked softly. "I think Brewer died in that room," Harris said. "But I also think someone's been keeping it alive ever since." Delgado frowned. "Keeping what alive?" Harris looked at the cracked neon sign flickering faintly above them. "Hollow Creek Motel, vacancy." "I don't know," he said finally. "But whatever it is, it's still checking people in." Later that morning, as the forensics crew prepared to excavate the sealed room, a deputy came running out from the office. "Detectives, you need to see this." They followed him into the reception area. The computer on the desk, an old beige relic from the early 2000s, was powered on. A reservation window blinked open on the screen. "New booking, room 9. Guest name, Henderson. Check-in time, today, 5 a.m. Delgado whispered, "That's impossible. That woman's been missing for 40 years. Harris didn't answer. He looked out the office window toward room 9. For the first time in years, the porch light above the door was glowing again. The morning sun broke across the Hollow Creek Motel like an unwanted guest, its light harsh and colorless, washing over the cracked parking lot and the crooked row of doors that lined the building's front. The sign above still buzzed weakly. Vacancy. But room 9's porch light burned brighter than the rest, steady, unblinking. Detective Harris stood at the base of it, arms folded, his jaw set tight. He'd been there since dawn, watching. The forensic team had cordoned off the area, and state police were en route, but none of it made sense. The motel computer had booked a guest, a woman who'd been missing for 40 years. And the time of check-in, 5 a.m., matched the exact minute he'd heard that whisper in the wall. "You shouldn't have opened it." He could still hear it, curling around the edges of his thoughts like smoke. Delgado came up behind him with 2 coffees from a roadside diner down the hill. She looked as though she hadn't slept in days. "No prints on the keyboard," she said, handing him one. "No remote access, either. That system's not even connected to the internet. Someone had to be here to enter that reservation." Harris stared at the cup in his hand. "And the room key for 9 is still missing." Delgado nodded grimly. "We've accounted for all the others. Whoever made that booking, if they used the actual master key, they're inside." Harris glanced at the window of room 9. The curtain fluttered faintly. Only there was no wind. By mid-morning, they had the whole motel under lockdown. Officers swept every room, every crawlspace, every inch of the old structure. The tunnel beneath the building had been sealed off again. The hidden room behind room 9 boarded and tagged as evidence. And still, the computer updated itself. Another booking. Same name, same room, same timestamp. Delgado's phone buzzed. She looked down at the notification and went pale. "You're not gonna believe this," she whispered. "Dispatch says they ran the name again through the state missing persons database. There's been movement on the case." Harris frowned. "Movement? They logged activity on Linda Henderson's file," Delgado said. "Someone accessed it remotely from a municipal system. From this town." Harris's blood ran cold. Who the hell would have authorization for that? Only law enforcement. They went to the local sheriff's substation, a squat brick building that smelled of burnt coffee and mildew. Inside, a young deputy on night duty blinked when they arrived. You're looking for Sheriff Danner?" he asked. Harris frowned. "Danner? Thought he retired." The deputy looked confused. "He did. Back in 1998. Why?" Delgado and Harris exchanged a look. "Because his name was the one on the terminal access log," Delgado said slowly. The deputy swallowed. "That can't be right. Danner died 15 years ago." They drove back to the motel in silence. Delgado scrolled through her tablet, tracing the connections. "You know what's weird?" she said finally. "Leonard Brewer, the original night manager, wasn't just some random employee. He used to be Sheriff Danner's brother-in-law." Harris stared at her. "You're kidding." "Nope. Brewer married Danner's sister in '78. They divorced a few years later, right before Brewer disappeared. So Danner kept him off the books. Protected him. Or protected the motel," Delgado said softly. The Hollow Creek Motel loomed in the windshield, its windows like black eyes. They parked near the office. The forensics crew was gone now, just the two of them remained. The front desk computer still glowed faintly in the dark, a soft green cursor blinking beside a single line of text. "Check-in complete, room 9. Delgado leaned over the keyboard. "This thing's ancient. The internal clock doesn't even work. How is it still recording real-time data?" Harris noticed something beneath the monitor, a yellowed notepad. He flipped through it. Every page was the same: names, dates, and signatures. Most were faded, but some looked almost fresh, written in shaky penmanship. Linda Henderson, Thomas Brewer, Rachel Cole, Jason Vaughn. All missing persons from the same 30-mile stretch of Highway 12. But at the very bottom of the list, in ink so fresh it glistened, Delgado. Harris. The pen beside the ledger was still warm. Delgado's hand froze. That wasn't here before. Harris turned toward the door instinctively, but the latch was moving. Slowly, the knob twisted once. Then again. He drew his weapon. "Police. Identify yourself." No answer. He nodded to Delgado, who flanked the door. He yanked it open, and the hallway beyond was empty. Just the smell again. That same heavy, chemical-sweet rot from the tunnel. But the light above room 9 flickered once. Twice. Then stayed on. They moved toward it carefully, weapons drawn. Delgado's flashlight cut through the stale air. The door to room 9 stood ajar, the number plaque missing. Inside, the curtains were drawn. Dust swirled in the shaft of her light. The bed, the same one they'd seen the day before, was freshly made. White sheets. A mint folded neatly on the pillow. But the floor was wet. Harris crouched, pressing a finger to it. The liquid was thick, dark, and sticky. Not water. Blood. The bathroom door was half closed. Delgado moved toward it. Her breath came shallow and quick. "On 3, Harris whispered. They counted. 1, 2, 3. He pushed the door open and froze. The tub was full. Not with water, but with formaldehyde. A shape floated just beneath the surface. A woman, her face preserved in eerie stillness, eyes wide open as if frozen mid-scream. Linda Henderson, still wearing the same clothes she'd disappeared in, perfectly intact. Delgado staggered back, choking. "Oh my God, she's been kept here, like a specimen." Harris's light caught something else on the mirror. Words traced in condensation. "Checkout time is never." The air shifted. A faint creaking came from the vent overhead. Delgado raised her gun. Something moved in the shadows. Slow, deliberate steps across the carpet. Then, just beyond the curtain, a figure appeared. Wearing a faded motel uniform, tag barely legible. Brewer, the night manager. But his face looked waxen, gray, like a man long dead but refusing to rot. His lips twitched upward into a grotesque imitation of a smile. "You shouldn't have come back," he rasped. His voice sounded exactly like the whisper from the wall. Harris leveled his gun. "Leonard Brewer, you're under arrest." "Arrest?" Brewer chuckled softly. "No, detective. You're checking in." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring of keys, metal clinking softly. All 12 keys, including number 9. The lights in the room began to flicker violently. The floor trembled. Delgado shouted, "Harris, we need to move, now." But the hallway behind them was gone. In its place, only endless darkness. The motel itself seemed to shift, walls stretching and folding like breathing lungs. Harris fired. The shot echoed, deafening, but Brewer didn't fall. He only smiled wider. "You opened the room," he whispered. "Now you belong to it." Delgado grabbed Harris's arm, yanking him toward the window. They dove through as the light overhead burst, showering sparks. They landed hard in the gravel outside. The motel was silent again. The porch light above room 9 flickered once more, then went dark. Hours later, emergency vehicles surrounded the property. State troopers, forensic teams, news vans. It looked like a carnival of chaos. But when they returned to room 9, it was empty. The tub empty. The smell, the furniture, undisturbed. No trace of blood. No preserved body. No Leonard Brewer. Just a clean, vacant room, as if it had never been opened. Weeks passed. Harris filed his report. The state took ownership of the property, declaring it unsafe and closing it for demolition. Delgado tried to move on, but she couldn't shake the nightmares, the sound of those keys, that whisper behind her ear. One night, unable to sleep, she drove back out to Highway 12. The motel was still there, boarded up. Except for one thing. Room 9's light was on. Inside the county evidence locker, a maintenance worker cataloging items from the Hollow Creek case found an unmarked key ring. It contained 12 keys, each tarnished and tagged with fading brass numbers. He counted them once. Then again. There were 13. The last one bore no number at all, just a single word etched into the metal. Detective. 2 months later, Hollow Creek Motel was demolished. The land was cleared, paved, and sold to a gas station chain. But locals still say that on foggy nights, a faint neon glow flickers in the distance, even though the sign was torn down long ago. And if you drive that stretch of Highway 12 between 3 and 5 a.m., you might spot a lone figure standing by the roadside in a faded motel uniform, hand raised, offering a key. If you stop, he'll ask one question. Checking in. And if you answer yes, you'll never be seen again.
Hey there. Welcome to Midnight Sleep Crime. I'm here to help you relax tonight. I know many of you use this video to fall asleep, so before you get too cozy, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to hear from you. Story 1. A remodeling crew in Michigan was tearing up a 19th century farmhouse floor when they found a trapdoor. What was inside led to a statewide investigation, 5 exhumations, and the unmasking of a killer who had hidden in plain sight for over 40 years. In 2023, contractor Luis Romero and his crew begin renovations on an old farmhouse outside Kalamazoo. While removing the rotted living room floor, they discover a hidden trapdoor sealed shut with bolts and concrete. Inside is a narrow staircase that leads to a fully preserved 1970s children's bedroom, untouched, with toys, posters, and a bed still made. At first, the room seems like an eerie historical oddity, until they find human teeth in a jewelry box on the dresser. The case quickly unravels decades of secrets tied to the house's original owners, the Harlan family. The youngest daughter, Rosie Harlan, had gone missing in 1981 at the age of 9, but police had no evidence, and the family claimed she'd run away. Over the years, multiple foster children placed in the home also disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances, yet the case files were scattered and never connected. The discovery leads to a massive forensic effort that uncovers 5 victims. But the biggest shock comes when a now elderly man, a retired police detective who originally cleared the Harlans, is exposed as being part of the cover-up. His connection to the Harlans runs deeper than anyone imagined. The twist? The preserved bedroom was never meant to be found. It was built as a memorial by someone with a conscience, someone who left behind a final letter explaining everything. Kalamazoo, Michigan, May 3rd, 2023. Luis Romero wasn't one for superstition. He'd torn up enough old floors and walls over the years to know that sometimes creaking noises and cold spots were just bad insulation and worse plumbing. But this house felt different. The job was simple enough. Restore a dilapidated 1880s farmhouse for a young couple planning to turn it into a countryside Airbnb. The property had been vacant for decades, passed down through inheritance, rarely touched. A minor fixer-upper, they said, until Romero's crew pulled up the floorboards in the main room. It was Luis's apprentice, Kenny, who first found the edge of it, a steel-reinforced trapdoor, completely sealed with old cement and rusted bolts. "Hey, boss," Kenny called, tapping his crowbar against the edge. "You see this?" Luis knelt down, running his hand across the surface. It was flush with the joists, expertly disguised. He followed the bolts with his eyes. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure this door stayed shut. "Get the grinder," Luis muttered. "We're opening it." The trapdoor. The air changed the moment they cracked the seal. A musty, cold draft crept out from below. Kenny leaned in with a flashlight and frowned. "It's stairs," he said. "Leads down, but it's weird. Looks like finished walls." The hole opened into a narrow stairwell, perfectly preserved. As they descended, it felt less like a basement and more like a capsule from another time. At the bottom was a small door with floral wallpaper peeling at the edges. Behind it, a room no larger than 10 by 10 feet. A pink bed with ruffled sheets sat perfectly made. A small dresser, toy chest, and bookshelf lined the walls. Movie posters from the 1970s, The Rescuers, Star Wars, Pete's Dragon, were pinned up like someone had just been there. Dust lay everywhere, but nothing had been disturbed. A dollhouse sat open on the floor. On the nightstand, a Mickey Mouse lamp flickered when Luis tried the switch. This doesn't make sense," Kenny whispered. Luis opened the closet. Inside were a row of tiny dresses, all neatly hung, and a shoebox. He opened it. Inside, nestled among yellowed hair ribbons and paper dolls, were 6 human teeth. The call the police were called immediately. Within hours, the farmhouse was roped off, and the county coroner arrived with 2 forensic techs. Detective Ellen Glass of the Kalamazoo Sheriff's Department took the lead. The first thing she noticed? The room wasn't built with the rest of the house. The walls were newer, the construction modern. It had been created within the house and expertly hidden. What we have, she said during the initial press briefing, is a crime scene that may date back over 4 decades. We believe this was a concealed living space, and there is strong indication that a child lived here for some time. But what shocked her most wasn't the room. It was the house's history. The property had belonged to the Harlan family until 1997, when the last surviving member, Anne Harlan, was placed in hospice care. The Harlans had 4 children, but only 3 remained in the public record after 1981. The youngest, Rosie Harlan, had been listed as a runaway at age 9. The official report was thin. No signs of foul play, no autopsy, no evidence. But now, a child's room was buried beneath the house, one that no one had known existed. A room designed to be locked, forgotten. The survivor. 3 days later, the story broke statewide. Images of the hidden room appeared across news channels. The headline reading, "Secret Child's Room Found Beneath 19th Century Farmhouse in Kalamazoo." That's when the phone call came. Detective Glass picked up on the 3rd ring. "This is Ellen," she said. The voice on the other end was shaky, elderly, a man. "I know that house," he said. "I lived next door until '84. My name is Martin Blanchard. I remember Rosie." Ellen's ears perked up. "You were neighbors with the Harlans?" "Yeah," he said. "And I remember things. Screaming, mostly. And once she threw a note over the fence. I was just a teenager. I didn't do anything." "What did the note say?" There was silence for a moment. She wrote, "I'm not allowed to leave, but I'm still here. Please tell someone. My name is Rosie." A pattern emerges.
Hey there. Welcome
the cold
to
case
Midnight
unit
Sleep
began
Crime.
a full reinvestigation
I'm here to help
of
you
Rosie's
relax tonight.
disappearance.
I know many
While
of you
combing
use
through
this
the
video
original
to fall
police
asleep.
files,
So,
Detective Glass
before you
found
get cozy,
inconsistencies.
don't forget to like the video
Officers'
and
notes
subscribe
missing.
to the channel.
Evidence never
Also,
processed.
let me know where you're watching
And one
from
name
and what
stood
time
out.
it is there. I'd love to hear from
Detective
you.
Charles Lenning,
Story
the
1.
lead investigator
Every
at the
town
time,
has a place
had
people
signed
whisper
off on
about but
Rosie's
never
case within
visit.
48 hours.
For the town of Ashgrove,
An unusually
that place
short
was
window
the
for a
Sunset View
child
Motel,
disappearance.
a forgotten roadside
since
inn where
retired,
guests checked in but
now
didn't
living 2
always
counties
check out.
over.
When construction
Glass
workers
made
unearthed
contact.
a series of shallow graves
"What do you
behind
remember
the
about
property,
Rosie Harlan?"
detectives
she asked.
discovered that the motel's history
"Runaway,"
wasn't
Lenning
just
said
tragic,
flatly.
it was still
No
alive.
sign of abduction.
The Sunset View
Parents said
Motel
she'd been
sat half a
troubled.
mile off
Case was
Highway 9,
closed.
hidden behind a
foul
cluster
play.
of dying pine trees
You
and
didn't
a
find it
faded
odd
billboard
that a
that hadn't
9-year-old
been
could
updated
disappear
since the
without a
early
trace?
1990s.
I
The
followed
sign
protocol.
once glowed a soft
If you're
orange,
calling me 40 years
promising
later,
clean rooms,
then maybe
hot
your
coffee,
department's
and
got
cable
time to
TV.
waste.
But now only a
don't.
single letter flickered.
Click.
Sanderson
Something wasn't right.
Truckers passed it without
The
slowing
dollhouse
down.
back at the scene.
Locals avoided
Forensic
it altogether.
teams began
The
inventorying
few
the
who
room.
remembered the motel's
Beneath the
better
bed
days
was a
spoke
crawl
of it in
space
half
sealed with
jokes and
plywood.
warnings, like
Inside,
something
they
that had
discovered a
quietly
small
grown
metal
cursed
lockbox.
over time. But
Inside
that
the
night,
lockbox
when the
was a
rain
set
came
of
down in
photographs,
endless sheets and the
Polaroids,
highway ahead
curled at the
flooded with
edges,
fog, the
showing a
Callahan
young girl
family
with
had
red
no
hair in
choice.
various poses.
Their GPS had
Some
gone
showed
dark
her
miles
smiling,
back. The
others
fuel
crying.
gauge hovered dangerously
But the final
close to
photo
empty.
chilled the
The
entire
youngest
team.
child, Lucy,
It was of
was
Rosie
crying in the
standing
back
beside
seat.
the dollhouse,
So when the faded
holding up a
neon
sign
vacancy
written in
sign
crayon.
appeared through the mist,
"This is not my
flickering like a
home."
dying heartbeat, Tom
On the
Callahan
roof of
muttered,
the dollhouse,
finally,
forensic
and
techs
pulled the
noticed something
SUV into the
strange.
gravel lot.
Carved
The
into the
tires
shingles
crunched to a
with a
stop
blade
in
were
front of
7
the
sets
office.
of initials.
Stay in the
Only
car,
one matched
Tom
someone
said to
they
his
knew.
wife, Melissa.
R.H.
I'll check us
Rosie
in.
Harlan.
She nodded,
The rest?
glancing around nervously.
Unknown.
The rain
The
made
room had
everything
become a
look
forensic
distorted.
gold mine
The cracked parking
and
lot,
a nightmare.
the row of doors with peeling
Detective
paint,
Ellen
the
Glass
half-lit
stared at the
sign
dollhouse
swaying
on
in the
the
wind.
evidence table.
The place didn't feel
Each
empty.
carved set
It
of
felt
initials was
watched.
cataloged
Tom
and
jogged
magnified.
through the rain to the small
7
office.
sets.
Inside,
One belonged to Rosie
a bell
Harlan.
jingled when he
The
opened the
others?
door. The
No
lobby
mention of
smelled
them
of
in any
mildew
Harlan
and
family
lemon cleaner.
records.
Faded
Glass felt a
wallpaper
pit
peeled
form
at the
in her
corners,
stomach.
and a fan oscillated
the worst,
noisily on the
she
counter.
muttered.
Behind the
7
desk
sets of
sat an
initials.
elderly man in a
7
brown
kids.
cardigan, his eyes
Desai
half
nodded
hidden
grimly.
behind thick bifocals.
If we're lucky,
Evening,
initials
the man
alone
said,
won't be all we
voice
have for
gravelly
long.
but polite.
Digging
You're
the
lucky you
records,
caught me.
Detective Glass
Not many
requested
travelers
all
this
missing
time of
persons
year.
reports for children
Yeah,
under
Tom
12
said,
between
shaking rain from his
1975 and
jacket.
1985
We just need a room
in
for the
Kalamazoo
night.
County
Got
and
caught in
surrounding
the
areas.
storm. The old
The
man
list was
slid a
longer than
large
she
guest book
expected,
toward him. You
and
can
many
take
had
room
gone
7.
cold with only
Best
vague
bed we
leads.
got. 50 cash
She
or
assigned her team to
75 with a
begin
card.
cross-referencing the initials
Tom
with
hesitated.
these files.
Cards fine.
The first
The
match
man
came
frowned
quick.
slightly, as though
TL,
disappointed.
Timothy Lasker,
Suit yourself.
age 10,
He handed
disappeared
over a
while
metal
walking to
key
school in
attached to a cracked
1979.
orange tag. Room
AW,
7.
Angela
Checkouts
White,
at 10.
8,
Don't
vanished
mind the
from a
power
grocery store
flickers.
parking lot
Store
in
messes with the
1980.
lines sometimes.
MC,
Tom
Maya
nodded,
Carter,
turning to
6,
leave, but
last
something on the
seen
wall
leaving a
behind the
church
desk
daycare
caught
in
his eye. A
1982.
photo collage.
Each case
Dozens
had one
of faded
bizarre
Polaroids
similarity.
pinned under yellow
Initial
tape.
interviews with the
Your
Harlan
family?
family were conducted,
Tom asked.
but not followed up.
The man glanced up,
The Harlans
following
always
his
seemed to
gaze.
have
For a
just
second,
seen
he
the
didn't
child
answer.
nearby,
Then
or
slowly he
claimed
said,
they knew nothing.
I like
None were
remembering
arrested.
faces.
None were
Tom
searched.
forced a polite smile,
the Harlans were
thanked
in the
him,
background
and
of
stepped
everything.
back into the storm.
The family,
Room 7 was halfway down the road.
the Harlan family
The lights
patriarch,
outside
Walter
buzzed
Harlan,
and sputtered.
had died in 1992.